Chapter 674. The next day, Zhao Fu once again came to the palace. This time, Wu Zetian gave Zhao Fu the position of a rank 7 official, allowing Zhao Fu to officially show his face at the center of Great Tang's power. He could not be in a rush right now, as taking the throne would have to be done step by step. After returning to the resting palace, Wu Zetian had all of the female attendants leave and called Zhao Fu in. When Zhao Fu walked in, he saw a heroic-looking woman with a graceful figure and tan skin standing next to Wu Zetian. After walking in, Zhao Fu pretended to pay his respects and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty." Seeing this, Wu Zetian lightly laughed and said, "There are no outsiders here, so there's no need to put on an act. She's my daughter, Princess Taiping, and she's called Li Lingwei. She's your woman now." Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. This woman was the famous Princess Taiping, and Zhao Fu felt that there was no need for Wu Zetian to give her daughter to him. Li Lingwei stood next to Wu Zetian and looked at Zhao Fu. She had felt quite surprised when her mother suddenly said that she was going to choose a man to be her man, and she felt quite conflicted. After all, she had never met him before marrying him. However, as a member of the royal family, she could not make her own decisions. Li Lingwei understood that her mother had other intentions, or else she would not have married her to him. Wu Zetian could tell what Zhao Fu was thinking, and she glared at Zhao Fu as she said, "You'll know in the future. Right now, you're getting lucky, so hurry up and accept it. Don't make things difficult for my daughter." Hearing this, Zhao Fu laughed. Even though he did not know what Wu Zetian's goal was, Zhao Fu still walked up and looked at the valiant-looking Li Lingwei. He picked her up and carried her to a large bed. Li Lingwei had never thought that it would happen so soon. Looking at Zhao Fu's handsome and devilishly handsome face, Li Lingwei's face became red as she said in a small voice, "Be gentler." Zhao Fu gently nodded and placed her on the bed. He pressed down on her body and kissed her on the lips. At first, Li Lingwei was a bit restrained in front of Wu Zetian, but when she saw her mother and that man entangled, Li Lingwei no longer felt restrained and completely immersed herself in it. Afterwards, because it was Li Lingwei's first time and she had been tossing and turning for a long time, she fell into a deep sleep. She lay on Zhao Fu's left and Zhao Fu's right, and Li Lingwei powerlessly lay on Zhao Fu's chest. She started to tell Zhao Fu about her plan and the things that he needed to pay attention to. Half a month later, Li Ji became critically ill, and Wu Zetian started to make plans. She first wanted to usurp the throne, which meant that she had great power. Military power was the most important, as only with military power would she have the right to speak. Without military power, wanting to become the emperor was simply wishful thinking. Zhao Fu had already been promoted to a rank 1 state stabilizing general and controlled 70% of Great Tang's military power. The speed at which he had risen through the ranks was simply shocking. Following this, he started to force the loyal people to their deaths. Even though most of the generals and ministers who had followed the Shimin had died of old age, there were still some, such as Zhongsun Wuji and Chu Suiyang, who held great power. As such, he had to kill them. Even though he knew that they were loyal to Great Tang and not to Zhao Fu. Letting them go would be like letting a tiger back into the mountains, and they would come back to kill him. He could not be merciful in this matter. Some of the important ministers were executed for treason, and some related people were sent to the front lines. At the same time, he promoted some talented people to stabilize the people's hearts. Everyone in Great Tang felt that there was a storm brewing in the dark, and the situation in Great Tang was about to change. At the same time, some smart people started to choose sides. Zhao Fu was now the most popular person by Wu Zetian's side, and countless ministers sent gifts to befriend him. Of course, Zhao Fu did not reject any of them and accepted all of them. After all, if he wanted to usurp the throne, he needed their support. As Li Ji's illness worsened, all of Great Tang started to feel uneasy. Zhao Fu gathered his military power and was on standby to prevent any rebellions. Another week later, a bolt of thunder sounded throughout Great Tang. Li Ji had died, and all of Great Tang fell into mourning. No one dared to say that the crown prince would succeed the throne, because those who dared to say such a thing were either dead or sent to the front lines. Everyone was waiting for Wu Zetian to make a decision, but Wu Zetian had not made a decision yet. This was because Li Ji had just died, and if she did anything, she would lose the people's hearts. As such, Zhao Fu's ascension to the throne had to be delayed for now. Zhao Fu understood this, so he was not in too much of a rush. He sat in his room and looked through the military reports for various regions. If there were any rebellions, he would immediately destroy them. At the same time, the eunuchs and soldiers who had beaten up Zhao Fu in the past were all killed with a casual order from Zhao Fu. In actuality, Zhao Fu had to thank them for showing Zhao Fu how important power was. "Sir, the Empress wants me to bring them to you." A palace maid said from outside, and Zhao Fu invited them in. The door opened, and a few women walked in. The first woman was around 30 years old and was quite pretty. Her figure was mature and alluring, and her skin was like snow. She was a beautiful middle-aged woman. The second woman was 16 or 17 years old and had a pretty face and a slim figure. She wore a white dress and gave off a celestial aura. The third woman was 15 or 16 years old and was quite pretty. She had a slim figure and wore a purple dress, and she gave off a noble aura. The fourth woman was 14 or 15 years old. She was peerlessly beautiful and had a slim figure. Her skin was like jade, and she gave off an unruly and willful aura. Her looks were not inferior to Wu Zetian's at all, but her aura was slightly inferior. The fifth woman was 15 or so years old and was quite sweet and had a slim figure. Her skin was like snow, and she looked quite alluring. The sixth woman was also 14 or 15 years old and was also extremely beautiful. Her skin was white, and she had a graceful figure. Even though she was young, she had a pair of large breasts. Her eyes were bright, and she gave off a gentle aura. She was definitely a beauty that could bring disaster to a nation. Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. Wu Zetian had said that she would give him a small gift, but he had never thought that it would be them. The first was the famous Empress Wei, called Wei Xiong Heir, and she was Li Xian's empress. The second was her daughter, Princess Yongtai, Li Xianwei. The third was Princess Chongning, Li Rushi. The fourth was Princess Anil, Li Guo'er, and the fourth was Princess Yongshou, Li Tian'er. The last one was the famous Yang Yuhuan, the future imperial concubine Yang. Zhao Fu had told Wu Zetian about what had happened in history. After Wu Zetian died, she passed the throne to Li Xian. Li Xian was Wu Zetian's third son and the fourth emperor of the Tang dynasty. He had suddenly died of illness, and his empress was Wei Xiong Heir, who wanted to wield the same power as Wu Zetian. It was rumored that Wei Xiong Heir had an ambiguous relationship with Wu Sanxi, and that she and her daughter, Princess Anil, Li Guo'er, had poisoned Li Xian. However, this was just a rumor, and no one knew what the truth was. Chapter 675. Later on, Emperor Xuanzong doted on Yang Guifei and neglected the affairs of the court. He also trusted treacherous officials, such as Li Linfu and Yang Guozhou, adding on the mistakes in his policies and the use of Lushan and other treacherous officials. This led to the Ungshi Rebellion that lasted for 8 years, causing the powerful Great Tang Dynasty to decline. In the 4th year of Tianyu, 907, Zhu enforced the last emperor of the Tang Dynasty, Emperor Ai of Tang, to abdicate and change the name of the dynasty to Emperor Taizu of Liang. The Tang Dynasty fell and was established for 290 years. After the Tang Dynasty fell, there was a period of great division, known as the 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms period. This lasted for 60 or so years, and in the end, the Song Dynasty unified the country. After hearing about this, Wu Zetian felt quite conflicted. After finding out about this, she had wanted to kill Wei Xiong Heir and her daughters, as well as Yang Yuhuan, a woman who could bring disaster to a country, would be a disaster if they were left alive. As such, she wanted to get rid of them as well. However, thinking about Zhao Fu and the Zhou dynasty, Wu Zetian decided to give them to Zhao Fu as a gift. Even though they were her daughter-in-law and granddaughter, after what they had done, Wu Zetian did not want to keep them. This was especially so after she found out that Wei Xiang'er might have an affair with someone else in the future. Not only would she make her son a cuckold, but she might even poison him to death. Zhao Fu looked at Yang Yuhuan and Li Guo'er, who were both incredibly beautiful. Yang Yuhuan was the future Yang Guifei, and even though she hadn't grown up yet, she already had an aura that could bring disaster to a country, while Li Guo'er was the #1 beauty of the Tang dynasty. Li Guo'er's fame was not as great as Wu Zetian and Yang Yuhuan's, as the former had become an emperor and the latter had brought disaster to a country. However, in terms of beauty, she was not inferior to Wu Zetian or Yang Yuhuan. General Zhao, I don't know what happened to my daughter, but she's angered Empress Wu. I heard that she wants to execute us. General Zhao, you have to save us. Wei Xiang had a weak and pitiful look on her face as she begged for mercy. Zhao Fu sat on a chair and gave a trace of a smile. When Wu Zetian had sent them here, Zhao Fu had understood her intentions and gestured for Wei Xiang'er to come over. Seeing the trace of a smile on Zhao Fu's face, Wei Xiang'er understood what was going on, and she flirtatiously smiled as she walked over and sat on Zhao Fu's body. She wrapped her arms around Zhao Fu's neck and kissed him, and her tongue entered Zhao Fu's mouth. After a period of entanglement, Wei Xiang'er blushed and panted. She said in a sweet voice, "General Zhao, you're so bad." Zhao Fu hugged Wei Xiang'er and chuckled. He didn't know if it was because they were women of the Li family or because of Zhao Fu's current state of mind, but Zhao Fu didn't reject her. Instead, he wanted to violate her. His hands were already on her breasts, making all kinds of movements. Wei Xiang'er was quite flirtatious, and her face was red as she took off her clothes and gestured for her daughters to come over. Yang Yuhuan's face was bright red, and she couldn't just stand there by herself, so she also went over. After going at it for a while, the women all went to sleep. Wei Xiang'er, the beautiful woman, still had a trace of strength left as she lay on Zhao Fu's body and said flirtatiously, "General Zhao, our daughters and I belong to you now. Now that my daughter and I are yours, you have to take good care of us." Now, Wei Xiang'er had seen what had happened to the ministers in the imperial court. Wu Zetian was incredibly vicious and merciless, and she could only rely on Zhao Fu to survive. At the same time, Wei Xiang'er did not know why her body was so infatuated with this man. They had only just met, and of course she didn't like him. It was just that her body and mind seemed to be controlled by some sort of power, causing her to constantly think about him. Zhao Fu looked at Wei Xiang'er in his embrace and nodded in agreement. Following this, he told Wu Zetian that everything would be fine. Afterward, Zhao Fu turned to look at the young woman next to him and gave a bitter smile. He suddenly realized that he had taken the initiative to enjoy beauty. Now that so much time had passed and the situation had stabilized, it was time for Zhao Fu to ascend to the throne. Wu Zetian helped Zhao Fu make preparations. An imperial edict announced to the world that the great general of the state, Zhao Fu, would ascend to the throne and be called Qin. The entire world was shaken by this, and no one had expected that Zhao Fu, who had only appeared for 2 months, would become the emperor. Zhao Fu did not care about these things. He was currently wearing a dragon robe and a crown on his head as he stood on the balcony and looked down at the people kneeling below. He gave off the supreme aura of an emperor, and he was like a blazing sun that shook the surroundings and caused countless people to submit. System announcement. You have ascended to the throne as emperor and have completed the trial. You may now return to the heaven-awakened world. Just as Zhao Fu had thought, after ascending to the throne, he would have completed the trial. However, why did he not receive any rewards from this trial? Zhao Fu did not know what was going on, and he felt quite confused as his body became hazy and disappeared. Looking at the familiar scene, Zhao Fu understood that he had returned to Qin City and let out a sigh of relief. The trial had finally concluded, and Zhao Fu prepared to leave. He wanted to find someone to ask about what had happened after entering the trial space, as well as information about the exchange stone steel. However, rainbow light shined around him, and Zhao Fu felt quite startled as he found that all of the women he had had relationships with in the past had appeared around him. Wu Zetian gave a trace of a domineering smile as she looked around, while the other women felt quite confused and did not understand what was going on. "You were able to come to the heaven-awakened world?" Zhao Fu asked as he looked at the scene in front of him in shock. Wu Zetian smiled and felt quite pleased as she replied, "Of course. If it wasn't for that, why would I have given my daughter to you?" Zhao Fu understood what was going on. Wu Zetian definitely knew some things that he did not. However, if Wu Zetian was the real Wu Zetian, she would have been reincarnated 2,000 years ago. If she was a famous historical figure, it would not be a big deal as they were in the legacy. However, this was the first time a historical sovereign had appeared in the heaven-awakened world, and no sovereign had ever done such a thing. Zhao Fu was quite shocked and did not know how Wu Zetian had done it. He remembered that when she had passed the trial, she had only said that she would be able to leave the trial space, but she had not said that she would be able to take them with her. Wu Zetian walked over to the thinking Zhao Fu and smiled as she lifted Zhao Fu's chin and said flirtatiously, "What? You don't want this queen to come to the heaven-awakened world? You don't want to do it with this queen?" Huh. Zhao Fu could not help but laugh. Even though he did not know what was going on, since things were like this, Zhao Fu did not think too much about it. After pushing away Wu Zetian's hand, Zhao Fu said, "Let's go. I'll take you to see Qin City." Zhao Fu and his group of women walked through the great Qin City, and the women all looked at the outlanders around them in amazement, as well as the strange things. Following this, everyone in Qin City heard that Zhao Fu had completed the trial and returned to the heaven-awakened world, so they all hurried over. Chapter 676. What's going on? Zhao Fu had never thought that he would not be one of the 8 legatees. Zhao Fu could not believe this news, and he looked at the exchange stone steel. The 8 legatees' names were displayed, and the 8 eggs had been taken by them. Zhao Fu's heart sank, and he felt as if he had been submerged in icy water. His body felt incredibly cold, and he looked at the names on the exchange stone steel without saying anything. The 8 legatees all had source energy and would decide the fate of the human world in the future. If other races invaded, their power would be the main factor, and the 8 legatees would become the saviors of the human world. He had not obtained such an important position. Was it because he was inferior to others? Or was it because of something else? Zhao Fu thought about the 2 trial spaces. In the first corpse soul region, was it because he had not killed enough corpses? Or was it because he had swept through all of the villages and left no survivors? Or was there something hidden that he had not discovered? In the second Great Tang region, was it because he had died too many times? Or was there something else hidden? Or was it because he had slept with women? Or was it because he had not slept with enough women? Could it be because of Wu Zetian? She seemed to know something. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu turned to look at her. Wu Zetian was looking at the exchange stone steel with interest and did not notice Zhao Fu's gaze. Zhao Fu looked at her and felt that it was most likely not because of her. Then what is it? I don't know. Just where did I go wrong? However, since he was not one of the 8 legatees, there was nothing he could do about it. As such, Zhao Fu could only sigh and not dwell on it. Zhao Fu looked at the 8 names on the exchange stone steel. In the future, they would be the brightest stars in the human world and would decide the fate of the human world. The first was King Arthur's descendant, Tina Pendragon. From the moment she had entered the heaven-awakened world, her performance had been extraordinary. She had done many things and was a legend, and she was the most famous woman in the Western world. Many people had already expected her to be one of the 8 legatees, but they were quite shocked that she was able to stand at the head of the 8 legatees and had already exchanged for the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon. The second was the legatee of the Pharaoh's kingdom, Akhenaten. He was quite famous in the world and was often seen at events. Everyone was familiar with him, and, as one of the 8 legatees, many people expected him to become one of them. This time, Akhenaten had obtained second place, shocking everyone. It was said that not only did he have a nation armament, but he also had a clan armament and had obtained a divine sun firebird. The third was Great Xia's legatee, CG. As a legatee of China's first dynasty, CG was quite famous, especially in China. He had a close relationship with the ancient clans, so it was not strange that he was one of the 8 legatees. However, the foreigners were quite surprised that CG had obtained 3rd place, and they felt that he did not have the strength to do so. The Chinese side was quite disappointed as they felt that China should have obtained 1st place, and they had already exchanged for the sovereign emperor White Whale bloodline. The 4th was Geoffrey, who was from the Mizar kingdom. Him becoming one of the 8 legatees shocked countless people. After all, ever since they had entered the Heaven-Awakened world, the Mizar kingdom had been quite low-key and had not done anything big, so everyone had underestimated them. This time, they had shocked the world with a single brilliant feat as one of the modern kingdoms. The Mizar kingdom did not have any legatees, but Geoffrey had appeared as a member of the Vatican and had already exchanged for the 9 celestial enchanting deer. The 5th was Babylon, who was the legatee of ancient Babylon. He had a clan armament, but did not have a nation armament. Babylon's identity had been quite mysterious, and he had suddenly appeared. Otherwise, no one would have known about him. Ancient Babylon was one of the 4 great civilizations, but compared to the other 3 great civilizations, it had long since perished. No one knew how much of its bloodline remained, and it had already exchanged for the primal chaos beast. The 6th was China's enemy, Kievan Rus legatee Oleg. He had led the Russian players to invade China last time, but they had been repelled by China. Everyone was quite surprised that he had become one of the 8 legatees. Now that Oleg had become a legatee, he had become even more arrogant and started to act arrogantly towards China. He had already exchanged for the Finner bloodline. The 7th was Masanori Hano, who was from Japan. Her performance during the Divine Fish Festival had been quite outstanding, and it was said that she had obtained the Shutten Duji bloodline. She was incredibly bewitching, and she was loved by countless Japanese people. As one of the 8 legatees, many people were quite shocked. For a small country like Japan to have a legatee, many people felt quite envious and jealous. However, the Japanese people knew how terrifying her power was, and she had already exchanged for the Yamada no Orochi. This was quite a coincidence, as the Yamada no Orochi was a creature from Japanese mythology. The 8th was the Inca Empire's legatee, Ramus. The Inca Empire was the largest country in South America, and Ramus' reputation there was quite high. However, in other places, he was quite ordinary, and he was quite weak compared to other countries. Ramus had become one of the 8 legatees. He was not very famous in the world, and he felt that this position was given to him. South America felt that there were no other suitable candidates, but as a continent, they had to choose someone, so they gave it to him. He had already exchanged for Garuda. In actuality, if it wasn't for Shama losing to Zhao Fu and losing his nation armament and clan armament to Qin, as well as destroying the Maurya dynasty, he definitely would have become one of the 8 legatees. After all, India was one of the 4 great civilizations, and the Maurya dynasty was the most powerful dynasty. Shama had a nation armament and clan armament, so it was almost impossible for such a person not to become one of the 8 legatees. It was a pity that Shama had been defeated by Qin, causing countless Indian people to feel quite pained. If they had known this would happen, they would not have invaded China and would have peacefully waited for this day. With a legatee protecting them, their countries would be much safer. After looking at the information on the stone stele, Zhao Fu felt quite complicated. He had thought that he would be able to obtain 1st place in exchange for the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon's egg. Because he knew about the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon's power, Zhao Fu greatly wanted that egg, and he had treated it as his own. However, reality was just this cruel. He had been too arrogant, and not only had he not obtained 1st place, but he had not even made it into the top 8. Zhao Fu could not help but feel quite disappointed. Zhao Fu felt quite envious towards Tina Pendragon, who had exchanged for the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon. Zhao Fu looked down at the Earth Realm mark on the back of his hand and did not know what to say. It had helped him during the trial, but it could not make him a legatee. Chapter 677. Great Qin's legatee was publicly acknowledged as one of the 8 legatees, and he was one of the top contenders. However, he had not even entered the top 8 and was not a legatee at all. This made countless people feel quite confused. With Qin's strength, even if he didn't participate in the trial, he would definitely have an inheritor. Although they didn't believe it, the fact was right in front of them. Many people were curious about what had happened to Qin. Or had there been a major change? Or was there something else that they didn't know? How could this be? Many forces in Huaxia felt that it was a pity. If there were 2 inheritors in Huaxia, no one would be able to take the top position in Huaxia. The forces in Huaxia, including the clans, the government, the 100 schools of thought, and various sects, all thought that Crown Prince Qin was the top of the 8 inheritors. But now, they were really disappointed. Many people in Huaxia who were jealous of Qin couldn't help but start to ridicule him again. Crown Prince Qin is cruel, bloody, and obscene. It's the greatest tragedy in the world to choose such an immoral person as an inheritor. That's right. Your elder hates great Qin the most. What's so amazing about it? It's not even a legatee. Fortunately, I knew that Qin couldn't make it, so I didn't join him. The Great Xia dynasty is so powerful that it can take the 3rd position. F*CK. 3rd place is nothing. Huaxia should be number 1, but now the 1st and 2nd positions have been taken away by others. Qin is really a piece of trash. He doesn't win glory for our country. He's just a piece of trash. Since Crown Prince Qin wasn't an inheritor, the foreign countries were the happiest. If Huaxia was too powerful, what chance did they have? What they liked most was that Huaxia was weak. For example, many small countries around the Middle-earth had reached the maximum level of ridicule. Because of what happened to India, they didn't dare to directly ridicule Crown Prince Qin. They were afraid of Qin's revenge, so they ridiculed Huaxia in a roundabout way. Huaxia still calls itself the Celestial Empire? What a joke. Look, Crown Prince is number 1. With her leadership, Huaxia will definitely surpass Huaxia. The Pharaoh Kingdom might also surpass Huaxia. Then Huaxia will be number 3 forever. Let's see if you still have the face to call yourself the Celestial Empire. What a joke. Huaxia is actually relying on Qin's power. If Qin wasn't powerful, you would be useless. As the oldest country in Huaxia, you only managed to get 3rd place. That's all you've got. That's right. China is trash, and they only know how to bully small countries like us. If they have the ability to bully a big country, they should go and fight the Western countries. I don't think that's possible. China is just too cowardly. They really don't have the guts. The smaller countries around the Midland continent had enmity with China, so they mocked China quite a bit. However, the people from the other continents were more restrained. Even though they were secretly delighted that China had fallen, they still expressed their pity that no one from China had taken first. He even said some comforting words and pretended to be kind and righteous. Some of the Chinese people did not know about this and thought that it was really like that. They started to praise the various countries and say that they were China's friends. Right now, the happiest ones were the Western countries. Tina Pendragon had taken the highest position, and she would lead the Western countries to the peak of the world. Her popularity reached the peak, and all of the Western countries went crazy over her. She was like a living goddess. Tina Pendragon was also quite surprised that Qin had taken 1st place. She also thought that Qin's legatee should have taken 1st place. Even though she had never seen Qin's legatee before, she knew how terrifying he was. She had also participated in the sealing of the Chaos Imperial Star, and she could still vividly remember those cold, blood-red eyes that had caused the entire world to fall into despair. As such, she felt quite surprised that Qin's legatee was not the legatee. Akhenaten, the legatee of the Pharaoh Kingdom, also felt quite surprised. As one of the most powerful people in the world, he did not believe that Qin did not have the strength to do so. Looking back at Qin, Zhao Fu felt a bit disappointed. It was now the 6th day of the trial festival, and he wondered what would happen on the 7th day. This trial festival was mainly for players, and because the indigenous residents were in the legacy lands, they could also participate. However, they could only obtain the most basic rewards, and some outlanders did not even have the right to enter the trial space. On the 6th day, everyone would have completed the trial festival, and there would only be one more day until the trial festival ended. Since he had not obtained the status of a legatee, Zhao Fu did not mind too much. He still had 5 million trial points, so Zhao Fu used them to exchange for a few useful items. Following this, Zhao Fu decided to take care of the Corpse Soul equipment and the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. He now had 500,000 sets of Corpse Soul equipment, so he was not in a rush to obtain them. What he cared about was the effects of the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. Zhao Fu looked at Wu Zetian and said, "I'll get people to prepare a room for you. You can stay there for now. It might be a bit crude and can't compare to the Great Tang Imperial Palace." Hearing this, Wu Zetian lightly smiled and said, "That's no problem, but I still want to go around and see this new world." Zhao Fu nodded and sent people to take Wu Zetian around Qin. As for the other women, Zhao Fu also made arrangements for them. Following this, Zhao Fu went to an empty area and prepared to set up the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. In actuality, the Corpse Soul Blood Lake was a forbidden technique that turned living people into monsters. These monsters were from the death race and had all sorts of power enhancements. Not only did they have great resistance to all types of attributes, but they also had holy light skills. The only weakness was that their intelligence was too low. However, as a killing machine, this was quite suitable. Zhao Fu started to set up the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. He first needed to dig a large hole, which was quite simple. Zhao Fu ordered people to dig a large hole that was 100 meters wide and 20 meters deep. Next, he needed a type of ghost stone, which was a stone that contained yin qi. It was not very rare, so Zhao Fu quickly ordered people to buy it. They used the ghost stone as a material to create a large circular pool. Zhao Fu then ordered talisman masters to inscribe runes. Talisman masters were quite important, and there were many places that required them. After inscribing runes, Zhao Fu took out a large gray crystal that gave off an eerie aura. This was the core of the Corpse Soul Blood Lake, and only with it could he set up the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. Chapter 678. These corpses quickly melted into a pool of blood, and not even a bit of hair or bone was left behind. Zhao Fu threw in roughly 1,000 corpses, and they melted into a pool of blood that gave off a pungent smell of blood. Zhao Fu also threw in some Stage 1 and Stage 2 spirit grasses. Right now, Qin was mainly refining Stage 3 medicinal pills, and Stage 1 and Stage 2 spirit grasses weren't very useful to him. Following this, Zhao Fu also threw in 1,000 spirit stones. He did all of this according to the information given by the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. The Corpse Soul Blood Lake itself was a taboo, and it was used to nurture a new kind of life. It was like in science fiction, where some scientists would nurture monsters, and by throwing in spirit grasses and spirit stones, they could make the new life even more powerful. These spirit grasses and spirit stones quickly melted into the pool of blood, and the smell of blood not only didn't lessen, but instead became even stronger. The pool of blood roiled and even gave off bubbles like boiling water. Zhao Fu looked at the soldiers next to him, and they immediately obeyed. They brought the 10 people to the side of the blood lake and pushed them all into it. Mournful screams sounded out, and those people felt as if they had fallen into a boiling pot and were being cooked. It was incredibly painful, and their faces seemed to be twisted. Following this, their bodies slowly sank into the bottom of the blood lake, and the screams became weaker, but they didn't stop. These people were still screaming in pain at the bottom of the blood lake, but because of the blood, their voices were very weak. Zhao Fu's expression didn't change, and he stood next to the blood lake, quietly waiting for the results. Time passed bit by bit, and from day to night, torches were set up near the blood lake, illuminating the surroundings. At this time, the blood lake finally reacted. 10 4-meter-tall monsters with gray-white skin, ugly and savage faces, and sharp claws floated up from the bottom of the blood lake. Their eyes were closed, and they floated above the blood lake, motionless like 10 corpses. Zhao Fu waved his hand. An array of black light shot out, activating some kind of power within the blood lake. The monsters that were floating above the blood lake immediately opened their blood-red eyes, and they let out beast-like roars. At this time, Zhao Fu first ordered them to climb up from the prepared place, and then came to their side. The 10 monsters gave off powerful auras and panted like wild beasts. No matter what they had done before, whether they hated Qin or not, they now submitted to Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu was quite disappointed because their strength was only at stage 3. Zhao Fu looked at the introduction of the Corpse Soul Blood Lake and ordered people to capture a stage 1 cultivation cultivator and throw him into the Corpse Soul Blood Lake. Because there was only one person, Zhao Fu sped up the process of the Blood Lake's transformation, causing the blood water to violently roil and give off a wave of heat. A few hours later, a 6-meter-tall monster appeared, and its strength was at stage 4. Seeing this, Zhao Fu smiled. This Corpse Soul Blood Pool could create 35 stage 3 monsters and 1 stage 4 monster in a day. Calling the monsters was not a good name, so Zhao Fu called the stage 3 monsters Corpse Soul Guards and the stage 4 monsters Corpse Soul Commanders. This was the Corpse Soul Blood Lake's greatest effect, and it could not create stronger monsters. However, 35 stage 3 Corpse Soul Guards and 1 Corpse Soul Commander per day was already quite good. Currently, not many people in Qin could break through to stage 3 in a day. Moreover, with the Corpse Soul Guard strength, ordinary stage 3 soldiers would not be a match for them. With their massive bodies, combined with Qin's talisman heavy armor and heavy weapons, their strength would be terrifying. Zhao Fu smiled and left in satisfaction. He would leave the Corpse Soul Blood Lake to his subordinates. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the Tree of Life and Ginseng Fruit Tree and took out a small bottle. He dripped some violet liquid onto the Tree of Life and Ginseng Fruit Tree. This was the growth liquid that Zhao Fu had used his trial points to exchange for, and it was extremely expensive. Zhao Fu had spent most of his trial points on it, and it could cause spirit items to instantly grow for 10 years. However, it could only be used once. After using the growth liquid, the small trees quickly grew, reaching 10 or so meters tall. Their crowns were massive and lush, and they were filled with life. However, whether it was the Tree of Life or Ginseng Fruit Tree, they could not be used yet. Right now, they could only grow by 10 years, and if Zhao Fu wanted to use them, they would need to grow by 30 years. Finally, Zhao Fu rebuilt the city creation stones that he had obtained from the Corpse Soul space, as well as the 4 basic cities. After taking them out of the trial space, they became unused city creation stones and could be used directly. By the time Zhao Fu finished doing these things, it was already dawn. A faint light appeared over the horizon, and Zhao Fu wanted to rest for a while when a system announcement sounded out. System announcement. The 7th day of the trial festival has arrived, and the final trial has begun. All otherworlders with villages can participate. Zhao Fu was quite confused. What was the final trial? After thinking about it, Zhao Fu called over Shinru and Gaoli. They were both otherworlders and had cities, so they should be able to participate in the final trial. Husband, I also want to go in and have a look. Nu Lu hugged Zhao Fu's arm as she looked at Zhao Fu expectantly. Seeing her like this, Zhao Fu smiled. He knew that as Nuwa's legatee, she had obtained many benefits during the trial. She was even more beautiful than before, and her aura was even more alluring. As such, Zhao Fu was not worried about her abilities. The newly established basic cities did not have a city lord yet, so Zhao Fu gave Nu Lu the position of city lord. Right now, Zhao Fu did not know what the final trial would be like, nor did he know if they would be together after entering the trial space. He did not know for now and was filled with many unknowns. Looking at the 3 women in front of him, Zhao Fu asked, "Are you ready?" The 3 women nodded, and seeing this, Zhao Fu decided to enter the trial space together. A white light flashed, and the 4 of them arrived in a very large space. There were many people around them, and it was quite noisy. Seeing that the 3 women were by his side, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Because there were so many people, Zhao Fu had long since put on his cloak. This space did not have any restrictions on spatial rings and other powers, but he could not use City Lord Seals and Nation Armament's powers. At the same time, Xianru and the other two women also put on their cloaks because they were simply too beautiful. This was especially so for Nu Lu. As the #1 beauty on the China beauty rankings, many people recognized her. In order to avoid trouble, everyone put on their cloaks to hide their appearances. Zhao Fu had no idea how big this space was, but there was already an ocean of people. Apart from Chinese people, there were also people from all over the world. They most likely all had villages. Chapter 679. The final trial was to ascend the stairway to heaven. The higher one went, the more benefits they would obtain. They didn't know what the benefits were, but they knew that they were definitely very precious. It was unknown how long each step was, but it was 15 centimeters tall and 100 meters wide. Many people were already walking on it, but their expressions were quite difficult, as if there was some sort of power preventing them from moving forward. Zhao Fu looked over and said, "Let's go up as well." Xianru nodded, and Nu Lu happily smiled as she hugged Zhao Fu's arm. Gao Li looked at Nu Lu, and it seemed that she wanted to do the same, but she was a bit embarrassed, so she could only follow behind Zhao Fu. When they stepped onto the stairway, Zhao Fu felt a very weak pressure on his body. Even though it was quite weak to Zhao Fu, to ordinary people, it was a massive force. Zhao Fu brought the 3 women with him, and they walked 1,000 meters without any pressure. At this moment, there weren't many people because the pressure on their bodies was incredibly great, and it wasn't something that ordinary people could endure. A well-built man was covered in sweat as he breathlessly said, "Your elder can't take it anymore. I can only go this far. This power isn't something a human can endure. Old Zhang, your sister, how can you still leave?" The other honest-looking middle-aged man was also panting as he said, "The higher you go, the greater your rewards will be. No matter how tough it is, you have to persevere. This is a chance for nobodies like us. We can't compare to those geniuses." After saying this, the middle-aged man pointed at 4 mysterious cloaked figures. The 4 people in front of them seemed to be completely fine, and they didn't feel any pressure at all as they casually walked forward. One of them was even intimately hugging the other person's arm, causing the countless people in the surroundings to feel incredibly shocked. Just how powerful were they? There was simply no way to compare people to each other. Facing countless gazes, Zhao Fu and the others ignored them and continued onwards. As they went higher and higher, there were fewer and fewer people, and Xianru and Gao Li felt a trace of pressure. Nu Lu was still quite relaxed, and Zhao Fu didn't have any reaction at all. As they continued onwards, Xianru and Gao Li felt quite tired, and Nu Lu also felt some pressure. However, they were able to endure it in the end and arrived at a large platform. The platform was very big, covering an area of 10 or so kilometers. However, there were very few people on it, perhaps less than 10,000. At the same time, it was also very tall, reaching over 10,000 meters. Looking down, the people on the stone steps looked like ants walking around. The people who ascended the stone platform were undoubtedly the best in the human world. Almost every one of them possessed great power. Because of the different countries and races, some people also gathered together and formed small groups. At the center of the platform, there was a massive rainbow-colored ball of light floating in the air. There were already many people standing below it, and they were mainly split into 8 large groups, with the 8 heirs as the leaders. They were surrounded by the crowd like stars surrounding the moon. Zhao Fu walked forwards, but he only stood at the outskirts. He saw many familiar people, such as Zhang Heng, Wu Qingyang, Lu Yi, and the ancient clans. Almost all of the most powerful people in the human world were gathered here, and most of them were around the 8 legatees. Zhao Fu looked at Wu Qingyang and felt that it was not good for him to greet her, as his identity would definitely be exposed. Currently, there were many men and women around her, and it could be seen that she was quite popular. After looking at Wu Qingyang, Zhao Fu turned his gaze to the 8 people at the center. They were the 8 legatees, the future saviors of the human world. There were 4 people that Zhao Fu paid attention to. The first was, of course, Tina Pendragon. She had a peerlessly beautiful face, long golden hair, and a pair of golden eyes. She wore a silver-white knight's dress and had a golden sword at her waist. Her body gave off a powerful aura that could cause others to submit to her. This woman was undoubtedly his greatest opponent, and it was the first time that Zhao Fu had seen her in person. As such, he glanced at her a bit longer, but she still noticed him. Tina Pendragon turned and looked at Zhao Fu in the distance as she gave a slight smile. Zhao Fu nodded in response before turning to look at Akhenaten. Because of the terrain, his skin was quite tanned and he was quite handsome. He already had a clan armament and nation armament, and his power was quite terrifying. Great Xia's legatee, CG. Because they were both from China, Zhao Fu was quite familiar with news about him, so he did not pay too much attention to him. The third person that Zhao Fu paid attention to was the American legatee, Jeffrey. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. Before, the American legatee had been keeping a low profile and had not sent out any news, acting weak. However, they had suddenly exploded out and revealed their strength. Jeffrey had short, golden hair and a bright smile. It was as if his entire body gave off light, giving off a warm energy. The fourth person was Babylon, the legatee of ancient Babylon. He wore traditional Saudi clothing and covered his face, but his physique was quite well built. As the legatee of one of the four great civilizations, Zhao Fu had to pay attention to him. After all, a clan armament reigned above a nation armament. Zhao Fu looked at the other legatees and did not pay too much attention to them. Only Masanori Hanno looked incredibly bewitching, causing Zhao Fu to take another look at her. Following this, Zhao Fu looked at the other legatees, mainly the dynasty legatees. One of them was the Great Tang dynasty's legatee, Li Baiqing. This was the first time they had met. Logically speaking, Zhao Fu was his little brother, but they had different mothers. Now that Zhao Fu had come out of the trial space, he no longer tried to hide his identity. He gave a cold smile. Everything would be resolved in the future. Husband, can I go to the ancient clans? I haven't seen them a long time, so I want to go over and have a look, Nu Lu said as she hugged Zhao Fu's arm. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. After bringing Nu Lu into the Heaven-Awakened world for so long, she had never seen anyone from the ancient clans, so it was inevitable that she would miss them. As such, Zhao Fu agreed. Nu Lu happily kissed Zhao Fu on the cheek before running over to the others and calling out, "Big brother Nyo, Lil Sisley, Big Fatty, Lil She." As the four of them were talking, a familiar voice sounded out. As children of the ancient clans, they had played together since they were young, so they were quite familiar with each other. When they heard this voice, their bodies froze, and they turned to look at the cloaked figure next to them as they called out uncertainly, "Nu Lu." Chapter 680. Sister Lu. Seeing that it really was Nu Lu, the only young woman cried out before happily leaping into Nu Lu's embrace. Nu Lu also smiled and lightly hugged the young girl. By now, everyone else had come to their senses. Nu Lu's body had long since entered the Heaven-Awakened world, and she had become Qin's imperial concubine. Everyone felt quite curious as to why she had suddenly appeared here. The oldest of the three, the muscular man that Nu Lu called Big Brother Nyo, asked in concern, "Lil Sis Lu, are you all right? How are you doing after marrying Qin? Did that Prince Qin bully you? And why are you here?" Nu Lu sweetly smiled and said, "I'm doing very well. You don't have to worry about me. My husband loves me very much. This time, I'll follow my husband, Sister Green." Before Nu Lu could finish speaking, she was cut off by a person. Hearing this familiar voice, Nu Lu's body froze, and she turned to look at the handsome young man walking over in delight. Xinyuan Xiao had never thought that he would see the woman he had been thinking about day and night here. His nose turned sour as he walked over and opened his arms, wanting to hug her. However, Nu Lu smiled and lightly blocked Xinyuan Xiao, causing Xinyuan Xiao to feel quite startled. "Long time no see, and I already have a husband. Don't be like this." Hearing her words, Xinyuan Xiao felt the pain in his heart again. He couldn't help but cry again. Seeing this, a trace of sadness appeared on Nu Lu's face as she said, "Big brother Xinyuan, I'm truly sorry. I've let you down." Xinyuan Xiao shook his head and said with a trace of hatred, Lil Sis Lu, it's not your fault. It's all that Prince Qin. He stole you away, and it's all his fault. Seeing him like this, Nu Lu felt quite uncomfortable and said, Big brother Xin Yuan, it's not my husband's fault. It's my own choice. Also, don't talk about my husband like that. Hearing the woman he loved call someone else husband, Xin Yuan Xiao felt furious. He grabbed Nu Lu's hand and called out, Lil Sis Lu, let's leave now and find a place where no one is around. We won't care about anything in the world in the future. That Prince Qin is cruel and ruthless. You must have been abused by him often. Come with me now. Seeing Xin Yuan Xiao's slightly crazed look, Nu Lu felt quite bad, but she still broke free from Xin Yuan Xiao's grasp and said earnestly, Big brother Xin Yuan, don't worry. My husband treats me very well, and I love him in both my heart and body. It's over between us. Don't be like this. I don't believe it. Xin Yuan Xiao madly roared, unable to accept that the woman he loved someone else. As he spoke, he grabbed Nu Lu's hand and tried to forcefully take her away. Seeing how crazy Xin Yuan Xiao was, the people beside him couldn't help but try to calm him down. Xin Yuan, younger sister Lu, said it very clearly. You better not make things difficult for younger sister Lu. I don't believe she likes other men. Don't mind my business. Xin Yuan Xiao seemed a little obsessed as he shouted with a somewhat crazed look on his face. His voice attracted many people's gazes. When they saw the woman he was holding, they could not help but cry out, She's Nu Lu, the most beautiful woman in China. This caused even more people to look over and see that it was indeed Nu Lu. It was the first time that many people had seen Nu Lu, and they couldn't help but sigh in amazement at her beauty. Moreover, hadn't she become Qin's imperial concubine? Why had she appeared here? Let go of her. A cold voice sounded out from beside Xin Yuan Xiao. Seeing that Zhao Fu had arrived, Nu Lu struggled free from Xin Yuan Xiao and leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace. Her eyes were slightly wet as she said apologetically, I'm sorry, Lord Husband. What? Nu Lu leapt into that person's embrace and called that person husband? Was that person Qin's imperial concubine? A cry sounded out, and everyone's gazes immediately gathered over. This included the 8 legatees and the legatees of the various kingdoms. Hearing this name, they instinctively looked over. Imperial concubine Qin's name was incredibly terrifying, and he held a very important position in their hearts, making them constantly pay attention to him. All of the unrelated people around Zhao Fu looked quite afraid and instinctively retreated. Within the 100 meters around Zhao Fu, there was no one who wasn't related to him. The expressions of the 4 people from the ancient clans became quite serious. Perhaps everyone's expressions became quite serious as they looked at the cloaked figure in Nu Lu's embrace. He was the rumored imperial concubine Qin's imperial concubine, and he was incredibly cruel and bloodthirsty. The lively scene where everyone was chatting with each other also turned cold and silent. Your imperial concubine Qin? Xin Yuan Xiao asked, his eyes filled with hatred. Zhao Fu looked down at Nu Lu, who was about to cry, and he comforted her warmly. I'm fine. I'm not angry. Nu Lu let out a sigh of relief and happily nodded as she smiled. Zhao Fu looked up at Xin Yuan Xiao and nodded, admitting that he was imperial concubine Qin's imperial concubine. Immediately, everyone in the surroundings once again sucked in a breath of cold air and cried out. He was indeed great Qin's legatee. At that moment, countless people walked over, including not only the 8 legatees, but also countless foreign legatees. I hope you can spare my Lil Sis Lu. Xin Yuan Xiao said rudely as he looked at Zhao Fu and gripped the Xin Yuan sword at his waist. Others might be afraid of imperial concubine Qin's imperial concubine, but he wasn't afraid at all. Zhao Fu's gaze became cold as he looked at Xin Yuan Xiao and replied, She's my woman now, and no one can take her away from me. Husband, don't be angry, all right? I'll take care of this. Nu Lu could sense that Zhao Fu was quite angry, so she hugged Zhao Fu and said in a pleading tone. Seeing this, Zhao Fu couldn't bear to see her like this, so he agreed. Following this, Nu Lu's expression became cold as she looked at Xin Yuan Xiao and said, Big brother Xin Yuan, if you keep acting like this, I'll really get angry. I'll say it one last time. I already have a husband, and I really, really love him. I hope you understand. Xin Yuan Xiu stared at Nu Lu in a daze. It was the first time he had seen her so angry and resolute. He felt as if his heart had fallen into an icy cavern, and he did not say anything else. His figure gradually disappeared, most likely leaving the heaven-awakened world. This made many people on the Chinese side feel that it was quite a pity. Xin Yuan Xiu was the descendant of Yellow Emperor Xin Yuan and had great potential, but he had given up on this trial. Nu Lu's eyes became wet, and she leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace and tightly hugged Zhao Fu as she said, "Husband, I like you." Zhao Fu felt a warmth within his heart, and he comforted her as he stroked her back. This matter finally concluded, but countless people did not leave and stared at the cloaked figure at the center. Wu Qingyang stood by the side with a serious expression. It was the first time she had seen Imperial concubine Qin, and she understood how terrifying he was. She wondered what would happen if he appeared here. Chapter 681. The 8 legatees looked at Zhao Fu seriously. Tina Pendragon had noticed him from the start, but she had never thought that he would be Prince Qin. However, Tina Pendragon did not like Great Qin's legatee too much either. Great Qin's legatee was simply too cruel and perverted, and he stole women all over the place. As a woman, Tina Pendragon did not like such things. Akhenaten's expression became serious. Because of Prince Qin's appearance, the final trial would not be simple at all, and it seemed to be much more difficult. CG also looked at Zhao Fu. He was the true ruler of China, and he should have led China to glory. However, all of his fame and glory had been stolen by Zhao Fu, and CG could not help but feel a trace of jealousy. At the same time, he made Zhao Fu his strongest opponent. Everyone else's expressions were quite grim, and they all had their own thoughts. Because of Zhao Fu's sudden appearance, they all felt quite uneasy. Some people started to have other thoughts, and just as they were about to do something, a system announcement sounded out in everyone's minds. System announcement. The final trial has begun. Otherworlders, please prepare yourselves. This system announcement caused everyone to become serious, and they looked away from Zhao Fu. They deeply breathed in and adjusted themselves to their peak state. Boom! About a minute later, a massive explosion sounded out in all directions. The rainbow-colored orb at the center gave off an even brighter light, and a massive formless energy weighed down on everyone's bodies. Everyone felt as if there was a massive boulder weighing down on their bodies, making it impossible for them to move. Their bodies were covered with sweat, and their legs trembled. Right from the start, some people could not hold on anymore. Their legs gave way, and they collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. They were powerless to stand up, and a formless energy pushed them to the edge of the flat ground. Their trial had failed. Zhao Fu looked at how difficult it was for everyone to resist, and he felt quite confused. Zhao Fu did not feel even a trace of energy weighing down on him. What was going on? Boom! 10 minutes later, another explosion sounded out, and a power that was twice as heavy as before weighed down on everyone's bodies. Some of the dynasty legatees found it quite taxing, and beads of sweat appeared on their bodies. However, some of the dynasty legatees were much more relaxed. Zhao Fu looked at the 3 women next to him. They also felt that it was difficult, but Zhao Fu could not help them and could only rely on themselves. As time passed, more and more people couldn't hold on any longer. They slumped to the ground, gasping for breath, powerless to stand up. Then they were pushed to the edge of the platform by an invisible force. They were closer to the center than the first batch of people who had fallen. In other words, they were closer to the center, while the first batch of people who had fallen were further away. It seemed that the rewards they received would be different depending on how long they lasted. Many people noticed this and continued to persevere. Boom! Half an hour later, another massive explosion sounded out as the rainbow orb gave off an even more intense light. The formless energy became 4 times more powerful than before, and it was as if it was corporeal as it weighed down on everyone's bodies. Some people directly fell to the ground and were then pushed to the edge of the platform by an invisible force. They were closer than the second batch of people who fell, and some of the people who fell climbed back up in an extremely short period of time. They could still continue to stay within the platform and accept the trial. They were not pushed to the edge by the formless energy. In order to pass the trial, countless people gritted their teeth and persevered. Zhao Fu looked at how difficult it was for the people around him, but he did not feel any pressure at all. Zhao Fu had no idea what was going on. The three women, Nu Lu, Xianru, and Gao Li, were also finding it incredibly difficult, and they gritted their teeth as they endured. Beads of sweat continuously rolled down their bodies, and their bodies slightly trembled. How do you feel? If you can't hold on any longer, just give up, Zhao Fu said caringly to the three women. Nu Lu forced out a smile and said, Lord husband, I can still hold on for a bit longer. I can still hold on for a bit longer, so you don't need to worry. Xianru smiled with great difficulty as she said, Your Majesty, I can also hold on for a bit longer. Gao Li was already panting, and her legs were slightly trembling. However, looking at the other two women, she deeply breathed in and continued to endure as she said to Zhao Fu, Your Majesty, I can also hold on. I can also hold on. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and nodded. The longer they could hold on, the more rewards they would receive in the future. Boom! A massive explosion once again sounded out as an even greater power weighed down on everyone's bodies like a mountain. Some of the dynasty legatees were unable to hold on any longer and collapsed to the ground. This immense power made some of the dynasty legatees feel quite difficult, and they felt like they could not hold on any longer. The 8 dynasty legatees also felt quite strained. However, Zhao Fu still did not feel any pressure on his body, making him feel quite confused and unable to understand what was going on. By now, Gao Li's legs were trembling, and she was covered with sweat. She started to breathe raggedly, and it seemed that she would not be able to hold on for much longer. Zhao Fu could not bear to watch anymore, and since there was no pressure on his body, he did not have to expend any energy to resist. As such, he sent his power into Gao Li's body. Traces of black aura flowed out of Zhao Fu's palm and into Gao Li's body. Gao Li received a wave of power, and the pressure on her decreased. Seeing that it was effective, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile, but he felt that something was off about Gao Li. Even though Gao Li was holding on, her face was bright red, and her eyes were lustful. Her body gave off an enticing aura, as if she wanted to do it with him. Suddenly, only then did Zhao Fu realize that he had sent 6 desires demonic qi into Gao Li's body, making him feel quite awkward. He had forgotten that he was cultivating the 6 desires celestial art, and his cultivation power was the 6 desires demonic qi. This power could not be used carelessly, as it had a powerful aphrodisiac effect. Realizing that he had made a mistake, Zhao Fu immediately sent his king's power into Gao Li's body, suppressing the 6 desires demonic qi. Gao Li's face became red, and she looked at Zhao Fu in embarrassment. Following this, Xianru could not hold on any longer, and Zhao Fu also sent his king's power into her body. Finally, Nu Lu was able to hold on, but Zhao Fu could not bear to see her suffer, so he also sent some of his king's power into her. Besides Zhao Fu, the 3 women barely managed to hold on. This scene caused everyone to feel quite shocked. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be able to help the 3 women while enduring such immense power. What's more, he looked incredibly relaxed and did not seem to be under any pressure at all. Just how powerful was Qin's legatee? Chapter 682. However, seeing how relaxed Zhao Fu looked, they felt that it was quite a blow to them. Qin's legatee was indeed terrifying, and he was a complete monster. However, how could they know that Zhao Fu had not withstood any of the pressure at all? It was as if he was a cheat in a game. An hour later, only a few hundred people remained out of the thousands. With Zhao Fu's help, Nu Lu and the other two women were able to hold on. In actuality, even without Zhao Fu, Nu Lu would have been able to hold on, but it would have been quite difficult. Xinru and Gao Li had to rely on Zhao Fu, or else they would not have been able to hold on. At that moment, the gravity around them disappeared, and everyone let out a sigh of relief. Some people disregarded their image and sat on the ground, panting. "Husband, thank you." Nu Lu sweetly smiled as she hugged Zhao Fu. Xinru and Gao Li also expressed their gratitude towards Zhao Fu. Without Zhao Fu, they would not have been able to hold on at all. This was especially so for Gao Li. She had felt quite hopeless and helpless. Zhao Fu did not mind and smiled. He had them rest for a while before waiting for the next trial, and the three women nodded and started to rest. An hour later, the rainbow orb on the stage gave off a faint light. It was not as intense as before, but the light it gave off was even more enchanting, and it gave off a dreamlike effect. At that moment, the next trial had arrived, and it was time to face the trial of one's heart. The sky was azure, and a large silver moon gave off a cold moonlight. On a grassy plain, a light breeze blew, causing the grass to sway. Tina Pendragon was wearing a silver-white knight's dress and holding a golden sword with both hands as she faced off against a flood of enemies. Within a sealed stone coffin, Akhenaten was locked up. His body was covered with scorpions and all sorts of insects, and they bit at Akhenaten's body, causing him to continuously howl. During the desolate beast era, it was incredibly difficult for the human race to survive, and they were persecuted everywhere. CG vowed to create a paradise and fight against all sorts of desolate beasts. The blood-red sky and black ground were filled with a terrifying aura. Jeffrey's body gave off a golden light that was like a sun, illuminating this world. However, in the next moment, countless demons covered the sky and covered the earth as they rushed towards him. In a desolate desert, the sun was shining brightly. There were no people, animals, or even plants, and Babylon was walking alone. Oleg, who was originally a noble prince, appeared in a farmer's family. As the son of a farmer, not only did he have to endure his father's scolding, but he also had to endure other people's disdain and disgust. Masanori Hanno appeared in Japan during the Heian era, a time when ghosts roamed the night and countless demons ate and killed humans. As soon as she appeared, countless demons started attacking her. Ramus ran quickly through the forest, not daring to stop for even a moment because there was a group of cannibals behind him. Everyone was frozen on the spot, and their eyes danced with rainbow-colored lights as they experienced different mental trials. The three women by Zhao Fu's side were also undergoing trials. Nu Lu's trial was in a world where the heavens had collapsed and the earth had caved in. Xinru's trial was in a five-elements world where there were different talisman beasts, and Gao Li's trial was in the wilderness with Zhao Fu. As time gradually passed, people started to fail, and their bodies collapsed to the ground. In the next moment, they were pushed away by a formless energy. That person's face was pale, and he had just experienced a massive battle. Even now, he had not come back to his senses, and his body slightly trembled as if he had been submerged in icy water. That feeling was simply too terrifying. Following this, he came back to his senses and understood that he had failed. His expression dimmed, and when he looked at the center of the battlefield, he could not help but feel shocked. The people at the center of the battlefield stood there like blocks of wood, but there was one person who seemed to be walking around in boredom. He was completely different from the others. While the others were immersed in the trial, he was still clear-headed and had not been pushed away by the formless energy. There was only one possibility, which was that he had already passed the trial. This speed was simply too fast, and it was simply too much of a blow to his confidence. He had failed the trial so quickly, but that person had passed the trial even faster than him. It was simply infuriating to compare oneself to others. However, after thinking about it, that person was Prince Qin. How could he compare to him? This Prince Qin's strength was just as terrifying as the legend said. Right now, Zhao Fu felt quite bored. It was not that he had passed the trial quickly, but rather that there was no trial at all. Zhao Fu had no idea what was going on as he looked at the others undergoing the trial. What had gone wrong? Wasn't it a bit too hurtful that they were not even given a chance to pass the trial? Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel quite worried. The 8 legatees and the 8 eggs all belonged to others. He had wanted to obtain some benefits from the final trial, but it seemed that he was not given a chance to pass the trial, which was quite infuriating. At that moment, Tina Pendragon released a shocking sword light that killed all of her enemies and woke up from the illusion. She opened her eyes and looked at the dumbfounded people around her. At first, she did not pay much attention, but when she saw that Zhao Fu had long since woken up and was walking around in boredom, Tina Pendragon felt quite shocked. Tina Pendragon was greatly startled, and she thought to herself, Great Qin's legatee's strength is simply too shocking. He's passed the trial so many times faster than her. Following this, Akhenaten weakly breathed out. Enduring the pain of being bitten by countless insects in the illusion was not something that an ordinary person could endure. Akhenaten opened his eyes and looked at Tina Pendragon, who had long since woken up. He couldn't help but feel quite disappointed. He had lost to her again. However, Tina Pendragon gestured for Akhenaten to look at Zhao Fu. Immediately, Akhenaten understood, and his expression became even more downcast. Following this, CG loudly laughed and walked out of the illusion. With his speed, he felt that he would at least be first or second. However, when he opened his eyes, he found that Tina Pendragon and Akhenaten had long since woken up, and his expression darkened. Akhenaten gestured for CG to turn and look at Zhao Fu, who seemed to be incredibly bored. After looking at him, CG felt even more dispirited. Following this, everyone woke up, and some people failed the trial, including Gao Li and Xianru. In the end, there were less than 50 people left. These people were the elites of the elites, and they could be called geniuses. System announcement. Please defeat the World Protector in the final trial. Everyone's expressions fell, and they started to feel incredibly nervous. This was the final trial, and they were about to face the most terrifying thing in the world. They had received a system announcement that the World Protector was incredibly terrifying and cruel. It also had monstrous power, so everyone had to be careful. Chapter 683. This sudden change startled everyone. They watched as Zhao Fu flew into the giant rainbow-colored sphere of light, and an explosive sound echoed through the entire space. The rainbow-colored sphere of light that had been floating in the air rose up once more. It was like a rainbow-colored sun that illuminated the earth, dyeing the entire space with rainbow-colored light. Whether it was on the rooftop or the stone steps, countless people looked at the rainbow-colored sphere of light with amazement. Zhi. The rainbow-colored sphere of light rose to a certain height. Everyone could see that there was an ear-piercing, twisting sound in the sky. They saw the sky distort and a pressure as vast as the heavenly Tao slowly descend. Everyone felt their bodies sink as if their souls were falling into an abyss, falling into endless darkness. In front of this strength, they were as small and petty as grains of sand. An aura of fear and death began to spread through everyone's hearts. They looked at the sky in amazement, their bodies trembling. It wasn't just the people on the rooftop, but the countless people on the stone steps could also feel this terrifying strength. What exactly happened up there? Everyone on the stone steps thought to themselves in shock. The countless people on the rooftop were also shocked. They had been waiting for the World Protector to arrive, but who would have known that Imperial Prince Qin was the World Protector? This was too horrifying. With Imperial Prince Qin as the World Protector, just how difficult would the final trial be? It felt as if it had gone from difficult to hellish. As for those who had failed the final trial, they weren't too worried because they had already failed and couldn't participate in the final trial. What they were truly worried about were the 50 people facing the final trial. They were well aware of what they would face. The giant rainbow-colored sphere of light slowly scattered, turning into countless rainbow-colored butterflies that fluttered in the air. Countless motes of light sprinkled down from their bodies, making it look like a rain of light. It was an extremely beautiful scene that moved everyone's heart. But no one was able to appreciate this beautiful scene because the figure within the sphere of light was slowly revealed. He had a face as beautiful as a woman's, and he had long, glassy hair that reached his legs. He wore rainbow-colored robes, and his blood-red eyes didn't contain a trace of human emotion. They were so cold that it chilled one's heart. Compared to Zhao Fu's current appearance, there was a massive change. Before, Zhao Fu had only been handsome, but he had been in the category of man. Now, however, he was pure and beautiful. This was the first time everyone had seen Prince Qin's appearance, and they felt quite shocked. The men felt moved, and the women felt envious and jealous. Many rainbow-colored butterflies were still circling around Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu glanced at the crowd below and finally understood what was going on. No wonder he didn't need to participate in the trial. It turned out that he had already become a world protector. Now it was time to test them. According to the rules, they had to maintain absolute fairness. No one was allowed to go easy on them. Are you ready? Zhao Fu's voice was like a clap of thunder in the sky, shaking people's souls. The 50 men who were assigned to the task had grave expressions on their faces as they prepared themselves for the battle. Seeing this, Zhao Fu smirked and gave a domineering smile. He grabbed at the air, and a rainbow-colored sword of light appeared in his hand. He raised the sword and pointed it toward the sky. The scenery around them started to change, as if another world was encroaching on this world. The sky gradually became a blood-red color, and a blood-red crescent gave off a cold and austere moonlight. Everyone appeared within a lush green patch of grass. Even though this place seemed to be filled with life, it was completely silent and gave off an aura of death. Zhao Fu's smile did not change as he turned into a ray of light and shot towards the crowd below. Immediately, everyone was given a big fright, and Tina Pendragon yelled, causing everyone to quickly scatter. Everyone understood and quickly flew to the side. Boom! The ray of light smashed into the ground like a meteor, and a corporeal shockwave blasted the ground into nothingness. Large amounts of sand and rocks shot out in all directions like rain, and the force behind the shockwave was incredibly great and could easily pierce through a person's skull. Tina Pendragon gripped the golden sword with both hands and blocked in front of her, forming a semicircular barrier of light that blocked the countless rocks. CG stretched out his hand, and a violet barrier with dragon inscriptions appeared around him. It seemed that he had also grasped King's power, and everyone else also used various methods to defend. Shing! A clear sword hum rang out, and a huge sword wind swept out in all directions. The large amount of dust covering the surroundings was swept away, and the huge sword wind even caused some of the weaker people to take a step back. After the dust settled, Zhao Fu was revealed at the center of the crater. The current Zhao Fu gave off an aura of despair. Zhao Fu looked at Tina Pendragon and gave a big smile as he said, "Come, let me see the legendary King Arthur's power." In the next second, Zhao Fu suddenly appeared in front of Tina Pendragon, and his rainbow-colored sword light gave off an aura of annihilation that seemed to be able to cut through everything. Space itself seemed to crack as it slashed towards Tina Pendragon. Understanding how terrifying Zhao Fu's strike was, Arthur cried out and exploded out with all of her power, causing the ground to crack. A few golden arcs of lightning flashed as the golden sword in her hand gave off a brilliant light, giving off a soul-shaking power. As Zhao Fu slashed down, Arthur gripped her sword with both hands and slashed out, and the two swords collided. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the two massive powers collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A barrier of light spread out, annihilating everything within 1,000 meters. Arthur's body slid back 10 or so meters before stopping. A trace of blood leaked out of her lips, and her expression became serious as she gripped her golden sword with both hands and stared at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and prepared to attack again when a massive arm whistled toward Zhao Fu. Akhenaten also acted, using his power to condense a 10 or so meter tall sand giant that started to attack Zhao Fu. Their main mission was to defeat Zhao Fu, and Arthur was their greatest ally. If she was killed, it would be even more difficult to face Zhao Fu in the future. Sensing the incoming hand, Zhao Fu felt quite disdainful and casually waved his hand. A sword arc flashed out, slashing apart the incoming hand, which turned into fine sand and dissipated. Roar! At that moment, a violet dragon gave off a dragon's roar and gave off boundless power as it suddenly slammed toward Zhao Fu. CG also started to act. Zhao Fu felt quite condescending. Even though he could not attack again, Zhao Fu stretched out a hand and a rainbow-colored barrier appeared. As the violet dragon slammed into the barrier, it turned into violet chi and dissipated. Swish! A white spear of light tore through the air, giving off searing power as it flew toward Zhao Fu. A pair of angel wings appeared on Jeffrey's back, and he started to attack Zhao Fu in the air. Chapter 684. Everyone attacked together. He won't be able to hold on by himself. Seeing that Zhao Fu was continuously being attacked by so many people, one of the people cried out in delight. Zhao Fu looked quite panicked and was unable to deal with the attacks. Boom! 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 The others understood and unleashed all sorts of attacks at Zhao Fu. Sword lights, saber lights, fireballs, and spears of light inundated Zhao Fu's body. Explosions sounded out in all directions, and the ground caved in by 10 or so meters. It could be seen how ferocious everyone's attacks were. After using such powerful attacks, everyone was gasping for breath as they looked at the center of the dust cloud. Nu Lu had not attacked this entire time, as she could not attack Zhao Fu directly. Zhao Fu had told her before to attack him with her full strength and not to hold back. With Zhao Fu becoming the world protector, no one could hold back. If they could pass, it would be their opportunity, but if they could not, it would be their fate. They had to maintain absolute fairness. Zhao Fu could only attack with his full strength and could not be biased towards anyone. After all, the world protector's power did not allow him to attack everyone. Even though Zhao Fu had told her before, Nu Lu could not attack her husband. Seeing Zhao Fu being madly attacked, she felt quite worried. However, her worries were unfounded. After the dust settled, Zhao Fu stood at the center of the crater with his rainbow barrier, looking completely fine. Everyone's ferocious attacks were unable to break through Zhao Fu's defenses. Looking at the people around him, Zhao Fu coldly laughed and said, "Is this all you have?" Everyone felt a sense of helplessness, and their expressions became dim. Despite so many attacks, Zhao Fu had not been able to harm Zhao Fu at all. However, they were not ordinary people, and their gazes quickly became resolute. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and started to attack. There were simply too many of them, and it would be quite difficult to deal with them one by one. Zhao Fu decided to unleash a powerful attack, and he raised his rainbow sword of light and sent his world's source energy into it. The rainbow sword of light gave off a blinding sword light and became 10 or so meters long. A destructive aura flowed out like a fountain, and rays of sword chi flew everywhere. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts, and their hairs stood on end. Boom! Zhao Fu swung the rainbow sword of light and slashed out, causing a terrifying sword wind to blow out in all directions like a superstorm. It was extremely sharp, and as it swept past, the ground was cut 4 or 5 meters deep. Seeing such a terrifying attack, everyone went all out to defend, raising up energy barriers. However, that massive sword chi storm was like an unstoppable natural disaster. Countless energy barriers shattered, and everyone was sent flying like leaves being swept away by the autumn wind. After the sword chi tempest passed, the surrounding 10,000 meters was a mess. Be it the grass or the boulders, they were all destroyed. Sword scars crisscrossed the ground, looking very terrifying. There were originally 50 people, but in the end, only a dozen or so people remained. Looking back at the stone platform, they saw dozens of people lying on the stone platform, covered in blood. This caused the others to feel shocked, not knowing what had happened. Nulu also retreated because that terrifying power was not something she could defend against. In order to not make trouble for Zhao Fu Tian, she could only retreat. The surviving people's eyes were filled with despair and terror, and they felt incredibly bitter. That attack had instantly killed dozens of people, and now there were only 10 or so people left. How could they fight? They could not resist at all, and if Zhao Fu unleashed that attack again, they would all die here. Great Qin's legatee's power was simply too monstrous. Even with their combined power, they were unable to break through Great Qin's legatee's defenses. They were doomed to lose. The final trial was simply too difficult. Zhao Fu stood in the air, surrounded by the rainbow butterflies of light. Looking at the people coughing up blood on the ground, he smiled and said, "That's all you have. There's no hope of defeating me. Now, continue to suffer the fear of death." Ha ha! Zhao Fu loudly laughed in the air, and he once again raised the sword of light that had shrunk to its original length. Rays of rainbow sword light shot out and gathered above Zhao Fu, forming a terrifying rainbow flying sword. The expressions of the 10 or so people on the ground greatly fell. Sensing the terrifying ripples from the rainbow flying sword, they gritted their teeth and barely managed to stand up. Tina Pendragon's hair was somewhat disheveled, and her silver-white knight's dress was stained with dirt. She gripped the golden sword of light with both hands as she stared at Zhao Fu. Even though she did not want to admit it, she had never felt fear before. In front of Prince Qin, she felt a trace of fear. Tina Pendragon deeply breathed in and cut off that trace of fear. She roared as she unleashed all of her power, and the golden sword of light in her hand once again gave off a brilliant light, giving off shocking power. Boom! At that moment, Zhao Fu acted. The rainbow sword light condensed into a flying sword and slashed through the air before landing on the ground, resulting in a shocking explosion. The surroundings were filled with white light, and everything turned into nothingness. A 10,000-meter wide crater appeared, and of the 10 or so people, only 8 remained. They were the 8 legatees, and they lay on the ground, looking heavily injured and powerless. There was a trace of blood at Tina Pendragon's lips as she leaned against a massive boulder. Blood flowed out of her body, dyeing her silver-white knight's dress red, and she looked quite pitiful. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. Logically speaking, that powerful attack should have been able to kill everyone. So why had there been 8 of them left? Just as Zhao Fu felt quite confused, he discovered that there was some sort of power protecting the 8 of them. Moreover, Zhao Fu received a system announcement, and he looked quite troubled. This was because the world's consciousness wanted Zhao Fu to torture these 8 people and activate their power, which was the Earth Realm Mark's power. As for the method, the more humiliating and cruel it was, the better. Zhao Fu felt that he was a tool for the world's consciousness to teach these 8 people a lesson, and this would draw too much hatred. However, seeing the conditions that the world's consciousness had given him, Zhao Fu still agreed. After dispelling the rainbow sword light in his hand, Zhao Fu came before Tina Pendragon and said mockingly, "So this is King Arthur's power? It's simply too trash." Tina Pendragon was not angered by Zhao Fu, and she said calmly, "I can't compare to you, so I have nothing to say. Do whatever you want, but please don't humiliate me." Ha ha! Zhao Fu wildly laughed as he said, "This isn't an insult because the 8 of you are all weaklings. I can crush you with a single finger. Aren't you all trash?" Hearing Zhao Fu's wild laughter and insults, the others felt quite furious. Oleg, who had the most arrogant personality, roared, wanting to stand up and fight with Zhao Fu to wash away this humiliation. With his personality, he would rather die than be humiliated. Chapter 685. Zhao Fu continued to step on Oleg's head and humiliate him, making Oleg feel incredibly furious. He continuously struggled and roared, wanting to kill Zhao Fu. But Zhao Fu still stepped on his head, making him unable to move. He felt incredibly humiliated. Everyone else felt quite terrified. They had never thought that Legatee Qin's legatee would not only be cruel, violent, and lecherous, but he would also humiliate others like this. Zhao Fu felt quite sick of playing with Oleg, and he kicked him to the side. The world's consciousness told him that it was far from enough, and it needed to stimulate the power in the depths of their souls. Following this, the world's consciousness said that it wanted to do it itself. Zhao Fu did not mind. As long as there was a reward, it would be enough. As long as it was over, Zhao Fu's status as the world protector would not change, and he would be above the 8 legatees. There were even better rewards, and thinking about that, Zhao Fu happily smiled. Before, he had been too worried and had thought that he would not be able to become a legatee. However, the world's consciousness had long since treated him as the world protector, and there had been no trial at all. Now, the reward had been prepared for Zhao Fu, and it would be given to him after the trial was over. Zhao Fu felt that the world's consciousness was simply too good to him. As Zhao Fu smiled and thought about what reward he would receive, the 8 people on the ground once again fell into an illusion. Tina Pendragon calmly and fearlessly watched as Zhao Fu walked over, waiting for him to end his life and exit the trial. She had failed this trial, but she would work even harder in the future to surpass Legatee Qin's legatee. However, Zhao Fu walked over to Tina Pendragon's side and grabbed her mouth before lowering his head and kissing her. He stuck his tongue in her mouth and vigorously stirred it, and he rubbed her chest with his hands before savagely taking off her knight's dress. Tina Pendragon had never thought that this would happen, and she started to struggle. As a woman, she started to feel afraid, and she was no longer as strong and brave as before. That filthy and ugly thing continuously violated her, and Tina Pendragon had never felt such terror and helplessness before. For the first time, tears flowed out of her eyes. The world's consciousness has given me a privilege as punishment for failing the trial, Zhao Fu said as he smiled cruelly at Akhenaten. Family and friends were often the most fragile things in life, and you didn't need them. Following this, Zhao Fu started to torture and kill Akhenaten's family and friends right in front of him. Akhenaten howled in a heart-wrenching voice that he would definitely kill Zhao Fu. CG, you don't even deserve to be the successor of Huaxia. You can't even compare to 1/10 of me. You're really a piece of trash. You failed this trial, and the Great Xia's legacy has already given up on you. Who told you to be so weak? You're really trash. Zhao Fu mocked CG. Then, CG was shocked to discover that he had really received a notification. His identity as a successor had been erased, and now he was nothing. Zhao Fu laughed as he cut off a cute girl's head and threw it to Jeffrey's side as he said mockingly, "Faith in the light? I'm dying of laughter. What a bunch of hypocrites. I can kill as many people as I want. Can you stop me? Can your God stop me? Your God is just a pile of shit." Jeffrey's heart was filled with rage, and he exploded out with all of his power as he rushed at Zhao Fu. However, he was still defeated by Zhao Fu, and he watched as Zhao Fu slaughtered people and insulted what he believed in. This was the first time Jeffrey had felt so powerless. He watched as Zhao Fu continuously slaughtered and insulted, but he could not do anything to stop him. "Lowly servant, do you still want to resist?" Zhao Fu said disdainfully as he stepped on Oleg's head. Oleg was so furious that he once again wanted to resist, but he was firmly stepped on by Zhao Fu. Then, he watched as Zhao Fu undid his pants and poured his urine on his head. Oleg felt like he was going to die from anger. With his prideful personality, this was worse than being cut into pieces. However, he was still powerless to resist, and he was continuously humiliated by Zhao Fu. "Babylon, is this your little sister? She's quite cute." Zhao Fu lewdly smiled as he stretched out his long tongue and licked the little girl's face, causing her to cry in fear. Seeing the person he cared about the most being treated like this, Babylon's expression became savage as he roared, "Let go of her, or I'll definitely kill you." "Ha ha!" Zhao Fu wildly laughed as he said, "You want to kill me? You don't understand the current situation, right? Don't blame me. You can only blame yourself for being too weak and not having the ability to protect the most important person to you. The scumbag Zhao Fu had violated Babylon's little sister in front of him, causing Babylon to roar madly. Are you all right? I'm really sorry. I couldn't control my body, which was why I did that. Zhao Fu gently helped Masanori Hanno up. Masanori Hanno's face became red, and looking at Zhao Fu's handsome face, her heart rate sped up as she lightly shook her head. Thank you. Zhao Fu lightly laughed. Masanori Hanno's face became red, and she mustered up her courage and said in a small voice, It's all right. I know you're not that kind of person. There must be a reason for you to become like that. I've often heard about you in Japan, and I've always wanted to meet you. Is that so? Zhao Fu smiled and held Masanori Hanno's hand as he said, I've also heard about you. Masanori Hanno's face became bright red, and she felt quite helpless. Even though she looked incredibly flirtatious, she still had the innocence of a young girl. Following this, the two of them became more and more intimate, and Masanori Hanno felt that she had completely fallen in love with Zhao Fu. She couldn't help but confess to him under a maple tree, but a sharp knife pierced through her heart. Zhao Fu coldly laughed as he said, Did you really think that I would fall for you? I was just playing with you, and you took it so seriously. Masanori Hanno's tears continuously flowed down her face as she looked at Zhao Fu, and her life slowly flowed away. Zhao Fu bit off Rames's flesh and chewed in large mouthfuls. Blood continuously flowed out of his mouth, making Zhao Fu look incredibly savage. Your flesh is so delicious. Rames struggled with a look of terror on his face. A chunk of flesh had been bitten off by Zhao Fu, and he felt immense pain. Rames wanted to run away, but he did not have any strength to resist at all. Following this, another chunk of flesh was bitten off by Zhao Fu. Arg! Rames continuously howled in pain as he watched his body being eaten by Zhao Fu. He had never felt such terror and helplessness before, and he almost went crazy. Zhao Fu stood by the side and looked at the 8 unconscious people. He felt that it was incredibly slow, and he wondered if they would be able to awaken the Earth Realmark's power. Zhao Fu wanted to know what rewards he would receive for becoming a world protector. Arg. Chapter 686. 8 rainbow-colored runes gave off strange lights as they floated up from their foreheads. An extremely terrifying power spread out from their bodies, and their auras were dozens of times more powerful than before. Under their auras, the air seemed to freeze, and anyone who saw them would be shocked. Now, their eyes were completely blood red, and they were filled with hatred and killing intent, as if they had irreconcilable enmity with Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not understand what was going on. I only cursed them a few times before. There's no need to hate them so much, right? Also, now that they have awakened the Earth Realmark's power, does that mean I've completed the quest? Zhao Fu looked at the system announcements, but there was no response. Zhao Fu immediately felt that the situation was quite bad. I'll kill you. The first to attack was Masanori Hanno, and she yelled in pain and hatred. She grabbed at the air, causing countless traces of devil chi to flow out and form a devil halberd in her hand. She vigorously swung the halberd forwards, and a ferocious pillar of devil chi slammed toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's pupils constricted, and he could sense how terrifying this attack was. He stretched out a hand, and a rainbow-colored barrier appeared around Zhao Fu's body. The pillar of devil chi slammed against the barrier, resulting in a muffled explosion. Zhao Fu felt the barrier tremble. Following this, the devil chi spread out, covering an area of 100 meters, blocking everyone's vision. You scum! A roar suddenly sounded out from beside Zhao Fu. Babylon held a scimitar and glared at Zhao Fu as he slashed out with all of his strength, bringing with him a massive amount of saber chi as he slashed against the rainbow barrier. Crack! A clear cracking sound rang out as a few cracks appeared on the incredibly tough barrier. After all, This barrier had been able to defend against 50 legatees' combined attacks without being damaged at all. Emperor Qin, I'll make you pay for the humiliation I've suffered today 100-fold. Another roar sounded out as Oleg's handsome face became twisted. He gripped his spear and rushed over like a bolt of lightning, completely disregarding his own life to kill Zhao Fu. Kacha! A clear sound once again sounded out as the spear gave off terrifying piercing power and once again smashed against the rainbow barrier, causing a few more cracks to appear on the rainbow barrier. True sword of justice. At that moment, another cry sounded out, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite startled. Tina Pendragon's eyes were cold and filled with pure killing intent as she raised the golden sword of light with both hands and ferociously slashed down toward Zhao Fu. A massive golden sword light, bringing with it the power to cut through everything, flashed by, causing people's hairs to stand on end. Ping pong. The rainbow barrier was slashed apart and shattered like glass, and there was a sword gash that was hundreds of meters long on the ground. Zhao Fu felt quite startled, but luckily he had moved to the side, or else his body would have been split open by that sword strike. Suddenly, another figure appeared behind Zhao Fu. CG held a violet sword and slashed toward Zhao Fu. This sudden attack caused Zhao Fu to feel quite startled, but he grabbed at the air, causing the rainbow sword light to instantly form, and Zhao Fu slashed out. Shing! The two swords collided, resulting in a metallic sound. CG looked at Zhao Fu hatefully and roared, Emperor Qin, do you really think that I'm inferior to you? Today, I'll kill you to prove my Tao. CG gritted his teeth and gripped his sword with both hands as he used all of his strength to press toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and gripped the rainbow sword light as he vigorously slashed out, sending CG flying. However, Zhao Fu was once again given a big fright as a searing white spear stabbed toward Zhao Fu's back. Jeffrey, who had a pair of pure white wings, gave off a white light as he held the white spear. His face was filled with fury as he yelled, I'll cleanse you, demon. Zhao Fu hurriedly spun and slashed toward Jeffrey. The sword light collided with the white light, resulting in an explosion and a shockwave rippling out. I'll kill you. A twisted voice sounded out, and it was unknown whether it was from pain or fear. Ramus swung his iron staff, causing the air to explode as he swung it toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu could only dodge to the side. Scree! A massive black bird ferociously slammed towards Zhao Fu, and in that critical moment, Zhao Fu blocked with a rainbow sword light. Bang! Zhao Fu slid back 10 or so meters before stopping, leaving behind 2 shallow marks on the ground. A trace of blood leaked out of Zhao Fu's lips. Akhenaten's face was filled with hatred and fury as he said, Today, I'll take revenge for them. You deserve to die. Zhao Fu's expression was cold as he wiped away the blood at his lips. He looked at the 8 people in front of him who seemed to have gone mad and wondered what was going on. He didn't have such great enmity with them, right? Zhao Fu could sense that this had something to do with why the world's consciousness had asked him to act himself. The 8 people were filled with hatred as they ferociously attacked. Seeing this, Zhao Fu coldly harumphed. He had to unleash his full power, or else he would definitely be killed by these 8 people here. They had the Earth Realm Mark's power, and so did Zhao Fu. A circular mark appeared on the back of his hand, giving off a brilliant light. He held the rainbow sword light and pointed it at the sky as he roared, causing a rainbow pillar of light to shoot into the sky. Within the pillar of light, Zhao Fu's aura once again rose, and an even more terrifying might suddenly descended, causing the entire world to tremble. Boom! 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 Explosions shook the heavens and earth. No matter how powerful Zhao Fu was, the 8 people did not feel any fear. They looked as if they were going to fight to the death with Zhao Fu, and they unleashed powerful attacks together. Facing so many terrifying attacks, Zhao Fu raised the rainbow sword light and slashed out horizontally. A 1,000-meter long crescent slashed out, colliding with the 8 people's attacks. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as everyone on the sky platform outside the illusory world felt an unprecedented sense of terror. Even though they did not know what kind of battle was going on between the 8 people and Prince Qin, just from the terrifying shockwaves, they could tell how intense the battle was. Many people knew about Prince Qin's despair-inducing power. Before, he had casually killed dozens of people, and they who stood at the peak had been like ants to him, unable to resist at all. However, they did not know what kind of power the 8 legatees possessed, and they were able to fight so intensely against Prince Qin, who had become the world protector. It was possible to imagine the apocalyptic battle in the illusory world, and everyone felt admiration towards the 8 legatees. At the same time, they felt fear towards Prince Qin. Nulu looked incredibly worried, and she was quite worried about Zhao Fu. Chapter 687. Arc. Masanori Hano once again cried out and was the first to attack. She gripped her demonic halberd and quickly rushed over. Her hatred towards Zhao Fu was incredibly intense, and it was more than killing her 100 times over. The others also rushed over, and their blood-red eyes stared at Zhao Fu, wanting to eat Zhao Fu up. Seeing the 8 people rushing over, Zhao Fu acted first. When the 8 of them attacked together, even Zhao Fu would be at a disadvantage. He slashed out horizontally. A gash appeared in front of him, and with a whoosh, countless traces of sword chi, bringing with it a massive sword wind, rushed towards the 8 people. Masanori Hano, who was at the front, slashed out with her demonic halberd, sending out a crescent that cut apart a portion of the wind. She arrived in front of Zhao Fu and stabbed towards Zhao Fu with her demonic halberd. Zhao Fu dodged to the side and raised his sword, sending out a shocking sword light as he slashed towards Masanori Hano. This terrifying attack caused Masanori Hano's heart to feel a chill, and she hurriedly put away her demonic halberd. Clang! The sound of metal clashing could be heard as sparks flew everywhere, and Masanori Hano was forced back 5 or 6 meters. Roar! A massive roar sounded out as Akhenaten's gem-studded black staff released a monster with a human face and a lion's body, which gave off a terrifying aura as it charged at Zhao Fu. It opened its mouth and ferociously bit toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed as he raised his rainbow-colored sword and stabbed forwards with all of his strength. Countless rays of rainbow-colored sword chi flooded out like a river, slamming into the lion's body monster. The sharp sword chi tore the lion's body monster into countless pieces. True contracted sword. A cry suddenly sounded out from beside Zhao Fu, causing Zhao Fu's heart to feel a chill. He turned and saw Tina Pendragon raise her golden sword with both hands and slash down with a massive sword aura. A shocking golden sword light containing enough power to destroy everything slashed toward Zhao Fu. At this moment, Zhao Fu could no longer dodge. He could only hold the 7-colored light sword with both hands and block with all his might. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu was sent flying. Zhao Fu stabbed his sword into the ground to stabilize his body, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood as he looked up at Tina Pendragon. This woman's strength was not just an ordinary level of strength. Xiao! The sound of the air being torn could be heard as Jeffrey vigorously threw out the white spear of light. The white spear gave off a searing light as it streaked through the air, leaving behind faint traces as it appeared in front of Zhao Fu in an instant. Zhao Fu was startled and hastily dodged to the side. The white spear of light struck the ground behind Zhao Fu, and the immense force caused the ground to crack and collapse, creating a 10-meter wide crater. Bang! An explosion sounded out as Ramus appeared next to Zhao Fu and vigorously swung his metal staff toward Zhao Fu's head. Zhao Fu was unable to dodge at all, so he could only take this attack head-on. The metal staff heavily smashed into Zhao Fu's head, and Zhao Fu felt a wave of dizziness as liquid flowed out of his head. However, this injury was worth it. Zhao Fu gripped Ramus' metal staff with one hand, causing Ramus to feel quite startled. He tried to pull his staff out, but Zhao Fu did not give him the chance. The seven-colored light sword pierced through Ramus' chest, causing blood to spurt everywhere. Ark! CG loudly roared, and a violet dragon ferociously rushed toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu pulled out the seven-colored light sword and dodged to the side, and Ramus powerlessly collapsed to the ground, dead. After getting rid of the weakest Ramus, the pressure on Zhao Fu's body was slightly reduced. However, Ramus' death caused the other seven to sink into an even more frenzied state. Oleg roared, and his spear shot out a dazzling spear light as he rushed toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu forcefully swung his sword, and a huge sword chi pushed Oleg back. Puff! The sound of flesh being cut rang out. Babylon swung his scimitar, and a bright white light flashed out as he slashed at Zhao Fu's back, leaving a foot-long wound. In the next second, Zhao Fu's expression hardened, and he backhanded his sword, leaving a sharp arc of light as it shot out. Blood splattered, and a head flew high into the air. Babylon's headless corpse fell to the ground. Zhao Fu also lost his balance and almost fell to the ground. The clothes on his back were completely dyed red with blood. When these 8 people went berserk, it was not something that an ordinary person could deal with. However, after dealing with another person, he only had to face 6 people, and the pressure on Zhao Fu decreased again and again. After another person died, the remaining 6 people's eyes became blood red, and they became even more berserk. Their hatred toward Zhao Fu seemed to become corporeal, and it made people feel incredibly afraid. Boom! A blood-red flame appeared around Oleg's body, and he exploded out with a powerful aura. His expression was savage, and his eyes gave off a blood-red light. He gave off a murderous aura, and he roared, "Emperor Qin!" Bang! Oleg stomped on the ground, causing the ground to crack. His body shot out like an arrow and shot toward Zhao Fu. Sensing how terrifying Oleg's power was, Zhao Fu's expression became serious. He gripped the rainbow-colored sword with both hands and roared. Veins bulged on his body as he sent all of his power into the sword, causing it to give off a dazzling sword light. Boom! Just as Oleg arrived in front of Zhao Fu slashed out, seeming to tear through space as a massive sword light inundated everything. Cough! Zhao Fu stabbed the sword into the ground and powerlessly half-knelt on the ground as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. In front of him, there was a 10,000-meter-long and hundreds of meters wide canyon. The canyon was smooth and tidy, and it gave off a trace of an aura of destruction. Oleg's body was devoured by the sword light and turned into nothingness. At the same time, the sword light also hit Akhenaten. He had been about to attack, but he had been hit by the sudden sword light, causing him to fall to the ground, covered with blood. Akhenaten felt incredibly unwilling, and tears continuously flowed out of his eyes. Thinking about how Zhao Fu had tortured and killed his family, Akhenaten was filled with boundless hatred, and he cried out, "I beg you, you must kill him." Akhenaten gave one last cry before dying in unwillingness and pain. Ramus, Babylon, Oleg, and Akhenaten had all died. Now, there were only 4 legatees left. Akhenaten's final heart-rending cry caused the remaining 4 legatees to almost go mad. Blood-red aura flames rose up from their bodies, and the rainbow-colored runes on their foreheads gave off boundless light, giving them terrifying power. God said, "All evil in the world is nothing." Jeffrey spread his 8 blood-red wings, which gave off boundless blood-red light, making him look like a small blood-red sun. His words were holy and dignified, and as he spoke, the entire world seemed to tremble. Chapter 688. The immense pain caused Zhao Fu to howl unwillingly, and traces of blood appeared all over his body. By now, Zhao Fu had used up almost all of his strength, and that massive power had already crushed Zhao Fu into a ball. Just as Zhao Fu was about to explode, Arg! Zhao Fu howled in pain, and the Earth realm mark on the back of his hand gave off an even brighter rainbow light. At the same time, a rune appeared on Zhao Fu's forehead. This rune was quite special, and it seemed to be formed by fusing different runes, and it gave off a mysterious aura. Shing! A crisp sword hum resounded through the sky. The people outside the illusory world only saw the void being torn apart by a ray of sword light. That terrifying power caused everyone in the trial space to feel as if they had fallen into icy water. Their bodies and souls were all trembling. Just what exactly happened? Why was the battle between them so terrifying? It truly made one feel despair. The people on the sky platform all felt quite shocked, and they felt that this battle was incredibly terrifying. The countless people on the steps had no idea what was going on, but they were both curious and afraid. They wanted to see just what was going on, but it was a pity that their strength was too low, and they were unable to reach the top. Back in the illusion world, the blood-red sun in the sky had been slashed apart by a sword strike, and Jeffrey's body was split in half from head to toe as he fell from the sky. Another legatee had died. Even though the remaining 3 legatees had fallen into boundless madness, they could only understand how terrifying Zhao Fu was. Zhao Fu stood in the air, and a rainbow aura flame rose up from his body. His clothes and hair fluttered without any wind, and his eyes became blood red. He no longer held an illusory sword of light, but a crystal sword. Roar! 9 dragons' roars sounded out as CG raised his sword and sent the last of his power into it, unleashing his most powerful attack. Countless traces of violet chi swirled around the 9 violet dragons, giving off heaven-shaking power as they rushed toward Zhao Fu. Facing the 9 violet dragons, Zhao Fu casually swung his sword, and a massive sword arc tore through the sky. The 9 violet dragons exploded, turning into countless strands of violet chi. Meanwhile, CG's body seemed to have been sliced into pieces by countless sword chis, turning into a pile of dismembered corpses. Huai let out a delicate roar and charged towards Zhao Fu with the demon halberd in her hand, launching her final attack. However, as soon as her demonic halberd stabbed out, it was grabbed by Zhao Fu, and her body was pierced by a sword. Huai looked at Zhao Fu as tears flowed out of her eyes. Zhao Fu coldly pulled out his sword, and Hanno's corpse powerlessly fell to the ground. By now, Zhao Fu had lost control of his power. In the end, only Tina Pendragon and Zhao Fu were left standing in the air, giving off terrifying auras as if 2 worlds were about to collide. I will never forgive you. I'll take revenge for them. Tina Pendragon's eyes danced with tears as she looked at Zhao Fu and slowly raised the golden sword with both hands. The entire world seemed to fall silent and became incredibly austere. A golden sword light covered the entire heavens and earth, and a power that seemed to be able to annihilate everything spread out. True Oath Sword. Tina Pendragon gave a heart-wrenching cry as she slashed out with her golden holy sword, which gave off a resplendent light. Cracks appeared in space, and time seemed to slow down. This sword strike seemed to be able to slash apart the world. Pooh! The sound of a weapon stabbing into a body could be heard as a crystal sword pierced through Tina Pendragon's heart from behind. Zhao Fu coldly and slowly pulled the sword out. Tina Pendragon finally could not hold back her tears, and she turned with great difficulty to look at Zhao Fu one last time before falling down. When she opened her eyes, she saw Tina Pendragon standing on the rooftop and feeling quite startled. Hadn't she just been killed by Zhao Fu? How had she appeared here? Following this, some memories flooded into her mind, and her expression became quite complicated. The other 7 legatees also had complicated expressions, and they understood that everything they had experienced had been an illusion. Thinking about how they had risked their lives against Zhao Fu, they realized that it had all been a misunderstanding. Xing! The sky was slashed apart by the sword, and a terrifying voice sounded in the sky. A terrifying aura spread out like a flood. Zhao Fu looked at the 8 legatees who had reappeared and once again raised his crystal sword. Zhao Fu's consciousness was quite hazy, and seeing them reappear, he immediately wanted to kill them. The crystal sword gave off a destructive aura, and everyone's expressions fell as they once again felt despair. Tina Pendragon could not help but yell, "Emperor Qin, this was a misunderstanding between us. It's a misunderstanding between us. I apologize for my rashness before." Tina Pendragon did not apologize because she was afraid, but because she was in the wrong. However, Zhao Fu did not seem to hear her at all and continued to attack. The others bitterly took out their weapons. They did not have any confidence that they could defeat Zhao Fu. However, a ray of white light suddenly descended from the sky and landed on Zhao Fu's body. Immediately, Zhao Fu's world protector power disappeared, and Zhao Fu regained his senses. He immediately put on a black cloak, and Zhao Fu returned to his original appearance. Seeing that Zhao Fu's terrifying power had disappeared, everyone let out a sigh of relief. They then saw Zhao Fu put on his black cloak, and only now did everyone understand why Emperor Qin always wore a cloak. He was simply too beautiful. Of course, Zhao Fu could not explain this. After returning to the ground, Nu Lu leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace and asked caringly, "Lord Husband, are you all right?" Zhao Fu lightly laughed and looked at his body. He felt that the injuries he had suffered before had all been an illusion, and he was completely fine. As such, he said to Nu Lu, "I'm fine." Seeing this intimate scene, Heno felt quite complicated and did not know what to say. He felt quite uncomfortable. System announcement. The trial festival has concluded. You have failed the final trial. Rewards will now be distributed. Hearing that they had failed the trial, countless people sighed. However, there was nothing they could do about this. After all, Qin's world protector was simply too powerful and terrifying. Following this, rays of white light landed on everyone's bodies, and countless people felt as if their bodies were bathed in the spring sunlight. Their hearts felt warm and comfortable. Everyone's bodies started to disappear, and Zhao Fu's body also started to disappear as he returned to the heaven-awakened world. The three other women also appeared by Zhao Fu's side. Nu Lu affectionately hugged Zhao Fu's arm. Shinru's aura became stronger, and Gao Li's face was bright red. Thinking about what had happened in the trial, her body started to react. Zhao Fu looked through his gains from the trial and couldn't help but give a pleased smile. Firstly, Zhao Fu's identity as the world protector caused his power to be above that of the other 8 legatees. At the same time, Zhao Fu could use the world's source energy, which was incredibly terrifying and even more powerful than what Zhao Fu had used before. Chapter 689. Moreover, Zhao Fu's bloodline was now a level 17 sovereign bloodline. Before, Zhao Fu had only been level 16, and with the help of the world's energy, Zhao Fu had risen by another level. More importantly, Zhao Fu's heaven murder bloodline had completely fused with Great Qin's bloodline. In the beginning, Zhao Fu had 2 different bloodlines, and even though they were both quite pure, they could not fuse. Zhao Fu felt that his bloodline power could not be fused, and he could not unleash his bloodline's most fundamental power. Now that they had fused, Zhao Fu's attributes once again changed, and his power became even purer than before. His bloodline could be called the Qin bloodline or the Heaven Murder bloodline. Either way, it had fused into a completely new bloodline. However, Qin was Zhao Fu's root, and Zhao Fu was biased towards Qin. Even though the Heaven Murder Empire was powerful, it did not have much to do with Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu and Qin's relationship was incredibly close. Whether it was in terms of legacy, bloodline, or faith, they were inseparable. Zhao Fu liked Qin more because he understood it, so Zhao Fu wanted to call this bloodline the Qin Emperor bloodline. The name was Qin, and he added the Heaven Murder Empire's emperor. Before, Zhao Fu wanted to call it the Qin Murder bloodline or the Qin Tian bloodline, but he felt that it did not sound good, so he chose the Qin Emperor bloodline. In actuality, Zhao Fu already had 3 bloodlines. The first was to obtain king's power and unlock the king profession, obtaining a king's bloodline. What's more, it was an early-stage king bloodline, which was more noble, outstanding, and pure than a normal Ing family's bloodline. The second was the god-killer bloodline, which was obtained by killing a god, and it greatly countered ordinary godly spirits. The third was the heaven murder bloodline. Zhao Fu understood that it was an extremely terrifying bloodline, and it was even more powerful than the royal bloodline and god-killer bloodline. Right now, the Qin Emperor's bloodline had the power of these three bloodlines. It was the Qin royal bloodline, the god-slaying bloodline, and the heaven-slaying bloodline. What moved Zhao Fu the most was that Zhao Fu's king's power had evolved into emperor's power. Before, Zhao Fu had been quite short-sighted and had thought that king's power was the most powerful. After all, only by establishing a kingdom and becoming a king could one obtain king's power. However, now that Zhao Fu had personally seen how vast and terrifying the heaven-awakened world was, king's power was not so rare anymore. Even though king's power was still one of the rarest powers, as only a few out of hundreds of millions of people had king's power. However, now that Zhao Fu's standards were much higher, he was no longer interested in king's power. Now that he had emperor's power, Zhao Fu was about to laugh maniacally. After all, emperor's power was something that could only be obtained by establishing an empire, and it reigned above emperor's power, which in turn reigned above king's power. The kingdoms in the world were split into barony, marquisate, dukedom, royal kingdom, imperial kingdom, empire, and holy empire, and they were all split into 9 levels. From this, it could be seen that Zhao Fu's emperor's bloodline reigned above many people. Even the Devil Horn Empire, which posed the greatest threat, was only a level 1 dukedom, and its bloodline was not as high as Zhao Fu's. In fact, it was a few levels lower. However, it had a powerful military and overall strength. In the demon god's memories, the only person who had emperor's power without establishing a kingdom was Zhao Fu. What's more, Zhao Fu's bloodline was an early-stage emperor bloodline. Apart from the bloodline, Zhao Fu also obtained a pet. This pet's grade was higher than the 4 guardian beasts, and it was world grade. A world could only give birth to one, and even in the heaven-awakened world, it was an incredibly precious thing. This pet had not hatched yet, and it was still an egg. Zhao Fu took out an egg. The egg was as big as a fist and was oval-shaped. It gave off a rainbow-colored light and looked quite beautiful. This egg gave off a powerful might and a powerful life force. World-cleansing butterfly. Grade. World grade. Description. A world beast born in the earth realm. It has world energy and is an extremely terrifying creature. Zhao Fu took out the world-cleansing butterfly egg and cut his wrist, allowing his blood to drip onto it. He was not sure how long it would take for the egg to hatch, but he knew that it had to be hatched with blood. That way, the world-cleansing butterfly would have a connection with you and would be more loyal to you. The other 8 types of eggs were also hatched using this method. Seeing the egg absorb his blood, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and put the world-cleansing butterfly egg away. After the trial festival had concluded, everyone had made great gains. Most people's bloodlines had become purer, and their stats and power had become stronger. Zhao Fu did not know about the others, but Zhao Fu knew that some of the people beside him had obtained things. For example, Nu Lu had refined her own 5-color divine stone. Xianru had obtained a 5 elements talisman, and Gao Li's bloodline had leveled up and she had obtained a powerful piece of equipment. After the trial festival concluded, Zhao Fu once again organized his forces and started to clear out regions. Because the trial festival had taken up a lot of time, Qin had to speed things up. Qin once again started to work like a massive machine, clearing out regions while building the inner Great Wall. News of what had happened during the trial festival spread, and countless people did not know what to say about Qin's legatee becoming the world protector and standing above the 8 great legatees. Shocked. This matter was quite shocking, but many people had expected it. Prince Qin was not a legatee, so he definitely had an even higher position. How could he be ordinary? Just from the trouble he had caused, His position was far greater than Tina Pendragon's. Right now, they all felt quite uncomfortable. Prince Qin seemed to be invincible, and no one could touch his position. Anyone in front of him would feel weaker, and they all felt a sense of despair. It was as if they were being crushed by a massive rock, and they would never be able to rise again. The happiest ones were still China. Of course, this was only limited to the factions that did not want to fight for hegemony. They wanted China to become stronger and stand at the peak of the world. That was what they wanted to see the most, and it gave them a sense of national pride. However, there were also many factions that sensed immense danger, and the situation became even more turbulent as they prepared to once again suppress Qin's strength. The clamoring voices in China once again quietened down, and even Oleg became well-behaved. This fellow was incredibly arrogant, and after becoming a legatee, he had become incredibly arrogant. His words could make people want to die, and now that he had been viciously taught a lesson by Zhao Fu, he did not dare to be as arrogant as before. At the same time, many people ran to the Ying family, wanting to join Qin and become closer to Qin. Right now, Qin's legatee was undoubtedly the most powerful expert in the world, and he had fought against 8 legatees by himself. This was something that countless people had personally witnessed. Qin's legatee was as powerful as a mountain, and it would be incredibly difficult to defeat him. As such, they made up their minds. Chapter 690. The Jiang and Yang family, which was Yang Guifei's family, wanted to send Yang Yuyin to the Ying family so that she could integrate into Qin. Out of the top 10 beauties, only Wu Qingyang and Yang Yuyin didn't have a master. If Yang Yuyin came to the Ying family, Wu Qingyang would be the only one left. However, Yang Yuyin didn't come to the Ying family. Instead, she went to the Li family of Great Tang. It was said that she was in love with the legatee of Great Tang, so she became Li Baiqing's woman. This made the Yang family incredibly angry, but they couldn't object. After all, Great Tang was a powerful dynasty, and joining it was quite good. Of course, it couldn't compare to Qin, but this was the only thing they could do. Otherwise, both Great Tang and Qin wouldn't be able to join. Zhao Fu didn't care about these things and focused on Qin's development. Another 5 days passed, and Qin continuously cleared out villages, causing Qin City to level up again. Village name: Qin City, Epic, Level, Secondary Main City Village Area, 24,400 square kilometers village territory, 142,1800 square kilometers popular support, 85 special stats, territory crop output plus 180%, territory crop growth time minus 180%, population limit plus 125%, resident stats plus 13, soldier stats plus 14%, population attraction plus 140%, high-grade attraction plus 140%. Subsidiary village limit: 26930 subsidiary villages. Logue Village, Jean Village, Doran Village, Li Family Village, Wolf Village, Ferocious Tiger Village. Now, Qin City was only 70 million EXP away from becoming a level 5 great city, which was a true main city. After that, it would become a capital city. This made Zhao Fu feel quite excited, as he was one step closer to restoring Qin City. The state of Wei and Beizhou had also become cities. Because they had submitted to Qin City, they had great autonomy. Zhao Fu allowed them to develop on their own, and the EXP they obtained belonged to their cities. Zhao Fu didn't take it by force, so they leveled up. Qin City gained 2 more cities and spawned 2 historical figures. However, their aptitudes were all S-level, so Zhao Fu didn't bring them back to Qin. Instead, he left them to them. At the same time, Great Shun and the state of Zheng, which Zhao Fu had conquered, had become advanced towns. Zhao Fu planned to level them up, as the amount of EXP required to level up was quite low for Zhao Fu. As such, it would be quite easy for him to level them up. Because they were nation legacies, City Lord Seals were much more powerful than ordinary City Lord Seals, and they were worth nurturing. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu happily left the Heaven Awakened world. Zhao Fu opened his eyes on the bed and saw a woman lying beside him, smiling at him. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Qingyang, how come you have time to come here?" This woman was Wu Qingyang. Before this, Zhao Fu had already given her permission to enter without any prior notice. Wu Qingyang propped up her head with one hand and stroked Zhao Fu's face with the other as she said unhappily, "Of course I missed you. It's been so long, but it seems like you don't miss me at all. It's always me who comes to find you." Zhao Fu felt quite awkward and said, "I'm sorry." Wu Qingyang lightly harumphed and forgave Zhao Fu before saying earnestly, "Zhao Fu, I've obtained an advanced border medallion. I got a high-level border token. Why don't you come over to my place?" Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused and asked why. Wu Qingyang sighed, and her expression became a bit dim. A trace of fear appeared in her eyes as she said, "During the trial festival, I personally saw Qin's legatee, and only then did I understand how terrifying and cruel he is. I'm afraid that after using you, he'll kill you. After all, you have King's fate, so he'll be suspicious of you. Emperors are always ruthless. However, I'm different because I'm a bit special. Since you have King's fate, you'll help me, so I'll definitely trust you. You don't have to worry about me doing anything to you." Zhao Fu bitterly smiled. He was Qin's legatee, so how could he leave to join the Zhou dynasty? Seeing how serious Wu Qingyang was, Zhao Fu didn't know how to respond. Seeing this, Wu Qingyang understood and sighed as she said, "Then you should be careful of Qin's legatee. I'll be waiting for you here." Zhao Fu earnestly nodded. After saying this, Wu Qingyang felt much more relaxed, and she smiled. She flipped over and pressed Zhao Fu beneath her as she kissed Zhao Fu. Their tongues intertwined intensely, and the two of them gradually heated up, causing the situation to spiral out of control. Zhao Fu looked at Wu Qingyang, who was like a female knight riding on top of him, and a trace of pity appeared on his face. He stretched out his hand and stroked her cheek as he said, "Qingyang, don't be so intense your first time." Wu Qingyang's face became completely red as she lightly harumphed. "I like it this way." At that moment, Wu Qingyang didn't know why, but Zhao Fu's body gave her an incredibly pleasurable feeling. Before, she hadn't wanted to do anything with Zhao Fu, but the situation had suddenly spiraled out of control. This was because of the 6 desires demonic qi within Zhao Fu's body, as it had followed Zhao Fu into the real world. Zheng Yuqin, who had just finished cooking, heard these indescribable sounds and couldn't help but walk over. These two people were quite daring, not even opening the door. Zheng Yuqin looked at the two people doing it, and her face became red as her heart rate sped up. Her body reacted, and she leaned against the wall as she reached into her underwear. A few hours later, Wu Qingyang finally powerlessly lay on Zhao Fu's body as she panted, and Zhao Fu smiled as he hugged her. The two of them didn't say anything else, and they continued to be affectionate. At that moment, Zhao Fu thought of something and told Wu Qingyang about what had happened outside the legacy land, and he said that he could help her. Now that Wu Qingyang had completely become his woman, Zhao Fu had accepted her. Wu Qingyang's face became pale when she heard Zhao Fu's words. If this news was spread, it would definitely shock the entire world, and she understood how serious this matter was. This matter was definitely Qin's top secret, and hearing that Zhao Fu was willing to help her, Wu Qingyang was so moved that she couldn't help but kiss Zhao Fu before putting on her clothes. Zhao Fu looked at her and asked, "Are you in such a hurry?" Wu Qingyang rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu and said, "Of course I'm in a hurry for something this big. I need to hurry up and make preparations, or else I won't be able to withstand this disaster." Zhao Fu understood and nodded before putting on his clothes. Following this, Wu Qingyang left, and Zhao Fu walked out. He looked at the food that Zheng Yuqin had prepared and smiled. After what had happened before, the two of them felt quite awkward. However, under Zhao Fu's sincere apology, Zheng Yuqin decided to stay. Her complexion became much better, and her face became more and more rosy by the day. Chapter 691. Zhao Fu did not see Zheng Yuqin, but he did not mind too much. After all, Zhao Fu spent most of his time in the Heaven-Awakened world and would return to the Heaven-Awakened world from time to time. As such, it was not strange that he did not see Zheng Yuqin. Sitting at the table, Zhao Fu did not hold back and started to eat. Even though the food from the Ying family was more delicious, Zheng Yuqin's cooking gave Zhao Fu a sense of closeness. After eating, Zhao Fu still did not see Zheng Yuqin, so he decided to enter the Heaven-Awakened world again. Seeing Zhao Fu return to his room, Zheng Yuqin walked out with a bright red face. She inwardly cursed at herself for fantasizing about doing that with Zhao Fu again. Zheng Yuqin decided not to think about it anymore, but the image of Zhao Fu doing it with Wu Qingyang once again appeared in her mind, and she could not help but clamp her legs together. After returning to the Heaven-Awakened world, Qin City became peaceful again. Outsiders did not receive any news, and Qin City focused on clearing out regions while constructing the inner Great Wall. Zhao Fu did not have to worry about clearing out regions, but Zhao Fu had personally gone to see the inner Great Wall. Because it was built with natural defenses, some places were quite dangerous and difficult, such as on cliffs. The bricks here were specially made, and they were 1 meter long and half a meter tall. This was because large bricks were built much faster than small bricks, and their defensive power was much stronger. In the real world, this would be a massive project, and it would take at least 10 or so years to complete. Just the transportation of materials was incredibly difficult, and there were no roads here, so they had to rely on manpower to transport materials. Moreover, there was a huge shortage of construction workers, and they might not have enough stamina. However, things were different in the Heaven-Awakened world. Materials were transported using spatial rings, and what was more important was that everyone could cultivate, so they were much stronger than ordinary people. In terms of manpower, Zhao Fu invested a lot of effort into Qin City, and everything slowed down. Now, they focused on conquering villages and constructing the inner Great Wall. Zhao Fu also thought of various methods to make it easier to construct the inner Great Wall, so the construction speed was dozens of times faster than in the real world. Time always passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the scorching hot summer once again passed. The leaves began to turn yellow, and the weather became slightly cold. Autumn was about to arrive. Zhao Fu stood on the tall building and looked at the scene in front of him. He felt that time really passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was almost autumn again. The autumn of the previous year seemed like it was just yesterday. Since ancient times, autumn was sad and lonely. Zhao Fu could not help but feel a trace of melancholy in his heart. After a few months, Qin had finally cleared out 18 regions and completed this incomparably vast siege. At the same time, Qin's strength once again increased by a terrifying amount. First was the population. Qin had a total population of 160 million, including 16 million soldiers. There were more than 10 million Stage 1 soldiers, 300,000 Stage 2 soldiers, and 10,000 Stage 3 soldiers. Of these, there were 86 great cities, 15 cities, 68 towns, and 5,989 villages. The ones that increased the most were the villages, which were roughly twice as many as before. Next was the number of towns, which also increased quite quickly. Finally, with Zhao Fu's help, Great Shun and the state of Zheng also leveled up into basic cities. Following this, Zhao Fu conquered another orc basic city. After Great Shun and the state of Zheng leveled up into 2 basic cities, 2 historical figures appeared. However, their grades were quite low, and they were only famous generals. This was because neither of these 2 kingdoms had surrendered and had been destroyed by Zhao Fu, and all of their legacies had been taken by Qin. As such, Zhao Fu didn't treat them the same way he had treated the state of Wei and the state of Zheng. All of the legacy items and historical figures were brought back to Qin by Zhao Fu. The Wyvern Den now had 225 wyverns, and 192 of them could fight. They could now be used in battle. However, if the situation wasn't urgent, Zhao Fu didn't plan to use the wyverns. After all, they were Qin's trump card, and they could be used to turn the tides of battle. As such, it was best to hide them, and only by using them suddenly would they be able to achieve terrifying results. The Corpse Soul Blood Lake had also nurtured 4,000 or so Corpse Soul soldiers and 100 Corpse Soul commanders. Because the Corpse Soul Blood Lake had only been established for a short time, it had only nurtured this many Corpse Soul soldiers. However, their strength was still quite monstrous. An ordinary Stage 3 soldier could destroy 200 or so Stage 1 soldiers, while a Corpse Soul soldier with powerful talisman equipment could destroy 300 or so Stage 1 soldiers. Of course, in front of a massive army, the Corpse Soul soldiers wouldn't be able to do this. After all, the ocean of soldiers' attacks would cover the heavens and the earth, and 300 Corpse Soul soldiers couldn't compare to them. However, if Zhao Fu had 10,000 Corpse Soul soldiers, Zhao Fu would be able to fight against 1 million Stage 1 soldiers. There was also the talisman equipment. Now, Qin had 4 million sets of talisman equipment, which could equip 4 million soldiers. These sets of talisman equipment could rival a set of trash gold-grade equipment, and they greatly increased Qin's military strength. However, as Qin's military strength greatly increased, Qin also became poorer. After all, the Stage 1 corpses and talisman stones could all be bought with money. Before, Qin had spent all of the equipment and gold coins that he had obtained from the system main cities. Now that Zhao Fu had taken out so much money, he didn't seem as rich as before. After obtaining Qin's money, the Swan Goose Group had become the largest financial group in the Kirsch Kingdom, and they were far ahead of the other financial groups. By now, they understood that Zhao Fu's identity wasn't simple at all. After all, it would be quite difficult for ordinary kingdoms to take out such a massive amount of money, and they definitely wouldn't be able to do it so easily with Zhao Fu. As such, they had to be even more secretive when interacting with each other. Because some people had noticed the changes in the Swan Goose Group, the Kirsch Kingdom's government started to secretly investigate why the Swan Goose Group had become so powerful. If they didn't pay attention and were discovered, it would be quite disadvantageous to both Zhao Fu and the Swan Goose Group. Right now, money was a big problem for Zhao Fu. After all, the corpses and talisman stones of Qin's soldiers were essential resources, so he couldn't lack them. After such a long time, Qin's inner Great Wall was finally completed. It was incredibly grand and majestic, and it looked like a long dragon that stretched between the mountains. With the protection of the inner Great Wall, Zhao Fu finally felt at ease. With this sense of security, no matter what happened in the future, Qin would have a certain level of defense and resistance. This was what Zhao Fu wanted the most. After all, Zhao Fu didn't have any confidence in the future. The Devil Horn Empire was becoming more and more powerful, and the situation outside was becoming more and more tense. Zhao Fu didn't want to face any danger without any resistance. Chapter 692. Facing the surrounding regions, Zhao Fu did not directly attack, and instead tried to persuade them to surrender. With Qin's strength and the inner Great Wall, it would be enough to defend against their attacks, and they would not be able to do anything to Qin. With his immense strength, Zhao Fu was able to patiently persuade the system main cities to surrender. These system main cities most likely knew that if the real world was devoured, players would not be able to revive, and system main cities would not be able to remain neutral. When that time came, players would have a greater advantage, as players' levels had risen and they would not need to fear system main cities, while system main cities would be at a disadvantage. Zhao Fu suspected that before the real world was devoured, system main cities would not be able to remain neutral. Now that the chaotic world had gone through a few stages, the war between countries was about to enter the final stage. The final stage was for people to kill each other. It was not just killing foreigners, but killing anyone. When that time came, system main cities would not be able to escape and would be forced to join. Zhao Fu did not know much about this, but the system main cities definitely knew. Zhao Fu did not believe that they would not consider the future. The dangers in the future would not be something that a single region would be able to defend against, so they would have to rely on more powerful people. Right now, Qin was the best choice. Qin had unified 31 regions and had constructed the inner Great Wall, making it a massive existence. It was the most powerful existence in the legacy land and could attract many people. Zhao Fu gave all sorts of benefits to those who submitted, such as not stripping them of their city lord positions and not killing any of the main city's residents. Everyone was now Great Qin's subjects. Now that the regions had been unified, Zhao Fu took out a map and discussed with his generals. They once again planned the regions outside of the inner Great Wall and added them to Qin's territory. This time, from the Sanyang region in the east to the Five-Colored region in the west, to the Luoyang region in the north, and to the Solitary Shadow region in the south, there were 120 regions. Apart from Great Qin's region, there were still 120 regions. Considering how long it had taken Qin to unify the 31 regions, it was now 4 times more than before. This was another huge project. However, he believed that Qin would soon establish a country by then. Thinking of this, Zhao Fu felt a little relieved. Now, Qin's grand ambition was unfolding step by step. Now, let's talk about the forces around Qin. They were divided into 4 directions, namely east, west, south, and north. The most powerful was still the eastern side. There were a total of 20 regions allied together, including 70 main cities. They had 7 million soldiers, and almost all of them were Stage 1 soldiers. Relying on their strength, the Eastern powers had tried to attack when Qin was building the Inner Great Wall. They wanted to destroy Qin's plan to build the Inner Great Wall. However, they were scared off by Zhao Fu's troops. Although they didn't dare to launch large-scale attacks, they still harassed Qin Feng on a small scale. Next was the western side, which had 17 regions and 60 system main cities. They had 6 million soldiers, and almost all of them were Stage 1 soldiers. Next was the southern side, which had 15 regions and 50 system main cities. They had 5 million soldiers, and almost all of them were Stage 1 soldiers. Finally was the northern side, which only had 10 regions. 2 regions away from the northern side of Qin was the border of Vietnam, and the Chinese city lords definitely couldn't ally with the Vietnamese city lords. After all, both sides were enemies. Seeing that the Chinese city lords had been destroyed, the Vietnamese city lords were incredibly happy. So how could they help the Chinese side? If Qin destroyed those 10 regions, they would have to face all of Vietnam in the future. However, Zhao Fu didn't mind, as there would be a war between Qin and Vietnam sooner or later. Qin's plan for the northern side included much of Vietnam's territory. Because they were different races and different countries, Qin's actions were basically invading another country. As such, the battles in the northern side would be far more intense than in the other directions. Luckily, Vietnam had already set up a Vietnamese defense, which would be quite useful when the time came. At that moment, Zhao Fu ordered people to write letters to persuade the Chinese side to surrender and gave them to the various city lords. He mainly gave them to the eastern, southern, and western sides, as some of the city lords would be quite interested. Even if none of the city lords joined, they would at least be able to split them up and prevent them from being united. When the time came, it would be much easier for Qin to destroy them. As for the northern side, Zhao Fu didn't write any letters to persuade them to surrender, and he planned to use force to conquer them. After all, they only had 10 regions and 35 system main cities, and they only had 5 million soldiers. Even though they were all Stage 1 soldiers, in front of the massive Qin, they wouldn't be able to resist at all. After sending out the letters, Zhao Fu just had to wait for the results. There were 1 million soldiers stationed in the eastern, southern, and western sides. Given how big Qin's territory was, if there was any danger, they wouldn't be able to react in time, so they had to leave some soldiers to defend. Otherwise, if they attacked this side, they would be ambushed by others. Without any soldiers to defend, all 3 sides would be in danger, as they could attack Qin at any moment. 1 million soldiers would be able to defend for a while, and it would be enough for Qin to send reinforcements. As such, Zhao Fu wasn't afraid of the other 3 sides. He gathered 13 million soldiers and gave off a grand aura as they majestically attacked the northern side. When Qin had been constructing the inner Great Wall, the northern side had also built thick defensive walls here. However, the sturdy defensive walls didn't give them any sense of security. Qin's soldiers flooded out like a black tide, their footsteps sounding like thunder and giving off an intense, austere aura that shook the northern side's people's hearts. What should we do? Looking at the countless soldiers below, one of the city lords felt quite afraid and asked the others. The other city lords all looked quite serious, not knowing what to say. Because of their geography, they couldn't ally with many regions, and they only had 5 million soldiers. If they had to face 10 million soldiers, it would be impossible for them to win this battle. Suddenly, powerful rays of light shot over from the distance. Those were the power of the city lords, and the entire northern side seemed to be covered by a haze. Have you thought about whether you want to surrender? I have many system main city lords under my command, and if you're willing to surrender, I won't mistreat you. If you join Qin, your safety will be guaranteed in the future. I'm sure you don't have any confidence in the future, right? Right now, I'm this world's world protector. You should understand that the world protector is the last and most important person to protect the world. I'm your best choice. Chapter 693. Now that Zhao Fu had become the world protector, he could control the Earth Realmark's power. Even though he could not use it on them, it would be good to scare them. After all, if they wanted to surrender, Zhao Fu would be the best choice. Hearing the voices from above, as well as the terrifying auras from the 90 or so city lords, the northern side's factions fell silent. Everyone hesitated because no one wanted to submit so easily. However, they were not a match for Zhao Fu at all, and what the other side had said was right. The dangers in the future were not something they could defend against, and with Zhao Fu's conditions, he was the ideal person for them to submit to. I think we should surrender to him. Right now, we can't defeat them, and we need to think about the future. This is something that we'll have to face sooner or later. A scholarly and weak-looking young man said nervously. Another white-haired elder sighed and said, "If I wanted to have the power to resist, I definitely wouldn't surrender so easily. Even if we face dangers in the future, our system main cities can work together to deal with them. AI, if they only sent 6 million soldiers this time, we could still fight. However, they have 4 times as many soldiers as us, and the city lords have 3 times as many soldiers as us. We won't be able to help at all, and we'll be surrounded and killed." A middle-aged man in robes said as he sighed, "What should we do now? Fight or surrender?" A big man asked loudly when he saw everyone sighing. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, the sound of the air being torn could be heard as countless arrows gave off sharp auras. Everyone felt a chill run through their bodies, and their hairs stood on end. The arrows descended like a torrential downpour, and cries immediately sounded out. This caused the city lords to feel quite startled, and they hurriedly rushed out. It turned out that Zhao Fu had taken the initiative to attack after seeing that they had not made a decision for a long time. Arrows suddenly shot out, causing many system main city soldiers to be hit. The massive army of city lords gave off a boundless aura as they flooded towards the defensive wall. Zhao Fu first used the stone man heart and sent his emperor's power into it, summoning 5 stone giants that were 10 or so meters tall. They appeared below the defensive wall and took the initiative to attack. They continuously punched the defensive wall, causing it to tremble and start to crack. Even though the Stage 1 soldiers were not to be trifled with, and their arrows gave off cold lights that could pierce through rocks, the giant's body was covered with arrows and could not stop them at all. Because they were just puppets formed from rocks, they did not have any life at all. Under Zhao Fu's control, they were naturally fine. Roar, 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 roar. For loud roars rang out in a radius of more than 10 miles. Auras of different colors surged out of the soldiers' bodies, gathering together like a tide, forming 4 giant beasts that were hundreds of meters long. One was a giant cyan bull, controlled by Meng Kuo, who was holding a long spear. The other was a big blue fish, controlled by Sima Kuo. The other was a ferocious purple blood leopard, controlled by Li Mu. The last was a fox, controlled by Bai Shihan. Zhao Fu had ordered Bai Qi, Wei Liao, and Wang Jian to suppress those 3 areas, so he had not brought them here. Bai Shihan had condensed her general armament, while Qin had been clearing out the region. She was also a 7 murder star, and this was not too surprising. After all, she was Bai Qi from a parallel world. She also used a sword, which had the same attributes as Bai Qi's 7 murder sword. However, the massive beasts that she condensed were different. Bai Qi condensed a blood-red eagle, while Bai Shihan condensed a blood-red fox. This time, the fox's body was quite big, and it gave off a trace of nobility and elegance. However, its eyes were incredibly cold, and anyone who looked at it would be able to tell that it was not ordinary. The 4 massive beasts gave off terrifying auras as they ferociously rushed at the defensive wall. They gave off different lights that dyed the sky 4 different colors, causing people to feel quite terrified. With their current strength, they could even crush a small mountain. Even the 3 city lords combined felt that they would not be a match for them. After all, this was something that had been condensed from millions of soldiers' auras. A gray and cold, ghostly chi slowly spread out from the defensive wall, and the soldiers in the region that was covered by the ghostly chi all lost contact, unable to resist at all. This ghostly chi seemed to be quite terrifying. On the other side, 10 powerful cavalrymen, riding on skeleton horses and covered in black fog, led a group of skeleton mages to summon transparent evil spirits that silently attacked the defensive wall. Now that the Disaster Knight had reached the Tier 4 standard, the 30,000 skeleton mages it controlled had also reached the Tier 2 standard. The evil spirits it summoned would also have Tier 2 strength. With 30,000 Tier 2 evil spirits, it would be a powerful force. Because they were transparent, they could silently invade people's brains and control their bodies, causing the soldiers to madly attack the people around them. These 30,000 skeleton mages were one of the few things that Qin had obtained from the undead disaster. Gathering 30,000 skeleton mages was incredibly difficult. Seeing this scene, the northern side city lords felt as if a massive flood was descending towards them, and they felt that they could not resist at all. They had underestimated Qin and had never thought that Qin would have so many attacks. In the next moment, the city lords felt that they would be destroyed by Qin. Wait, we're willing to surrender. The northern side city lords could not endure it anymore and cried out in terror towards Zhao Fu in the sky. Seeing this, a trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and he had the soldiers stop attacking. The massive aura from before instantly calmed down. This caused the northern side city lords to let out a sigh of relief, and they ordered their soldiers to give out their weapons and open the gates to accept Qin soldiers. Zhao Fu smiled as he and Qin city lords went down to the defensive wall and accepted the northern side soldiers. Looking at the dispirited looks on the northern side's city lords' faces, Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "You definitely won't regret your decisions today. Great Qin's footsteps are unstoppable, and now that Great Qin is restoring its empire, if you perform well, you will receive even higher statuses." The northern side city lords squeezed out smiles and nodded in agreement. Zhao Fu's words were not wrong at all. It seemed that Qin was the strongest and had the most potential, but now that they had just surrendered, they could not bring themselves to feel happy. After all, the future was unknown. Zhao Fu happily accepted the 10 regions. Now that he was stronger, obtaining region main cities would be much easier. Chapter 694. These 35 system main cities provided Zhao Fu with 13 million people and 3 million or so Stage 1 soldiers. Zhao Fu was quite satisfied, and after relocating so many system main cities, Qin City was about to level up again. After clearing out so many regions, the amount of EXP they had obtained from relocating 35 system main cities was not small at all. Adding on the EXP from relocating 35 system main cities, Zhao Fu City was about to level up. The northern side city lords passed through the Great Wall and came to Qin's territory. Seeing how peaceful it was, they saw how prosperous and powerful the cities were. It was a stark contrast to the bloodlust and slaughter outside. After personally entering Qin City and feeling how powerful and peaceful it was, the northern side city lords finally felt at ease. Before, they had felt that Qin City was incredibly bloodthirsty, cruel, and ruthless, and that the people living there would definitely have difficult lives. However, it was completely different from what they had expected. Qin City was definitely the most suitable faction to join. Now, none of the city lords regretted their decision, and a trace of a smile appeared on their faces. In this chaotic world filled with endless wars, Qin City had created a peaceful place, which was something that they could not do at all. Now that they had joined Qin City, they did not have to worry about the future. They did not have to worry about players rebelling or other factions attacking them, and they could just peacefully be city lords. This kind of life was quite good. Now that the northern side city lords had come to Qin City, Zhao Fu felt more at ease. Now that the 10 regions belonged to Qin City's territory was completely connected to Vietnam. Right now, Zhao Fu did not have any plans to invade Vietnam, because if Qin City invaded, all of Vietnam would retaliate. Luckily, the players could use reality-harming talismans to force them back. Even though they would hate Qin City, they would not dare to do anything. On the other hand, Vietnam's main cities would ally together. After all, this was a foreign invasion. Most people did not think that internal strife was a problem, but if there was a foreign invasion, there would be a problem of xenophobia. Moreover, the Vietnamese players were a big problem. Even though they were afraid of the reality-harming talismans, after the real world was devoured, they would become a big threat. If they were forced too hard, they would still retaliate. At that time, the reality-harming talismans would be useless, as their bodies would have already entered the heaven-awakened world. However, when they died, they would truly die. Right now, it wouldn't be a problem for Qin to defend against a kingdom, but it would be quite difficult to destroy a kingdom. As such, Zhao Fu didn't plan to invade Vietnam right now. At the same time, Zhao Fu ordered people to start building simple defensive walls at the border to prevent the Vietnamese kingdom from suddenly attacking or invading. Zhao Fu did not know when to make a move against the Vietnamese kingdom, and the northern side's matters had concluded here. Originally, Zhao Fu had planned to look elsewhere and think of a way to destroy them. However, under the suggestions of his generals, Zhao Fu gave up on this plan. This was because attacking the other 3 directions would affect even more regions. The other 3 directions were connected to many Chinese regions, and attacking them would cause countless city lords to turn against them. For safety reasons, even more city lords would join in. Some of the regions that were further away from Qin still hadn't expressed their stance, but since Qin wanted to attack, they could only join in. When that time came, the 3 directions forces would become many times more powerful, and they would be much more powerful than the northern side. As such, he decided to slow down. By now, Xiang Xinqing had completely digested the 10 regions, and his attitude became gentler as he tried to persuade the city lords to surrender and join Great Qin. With Great Qin's strength and defenses, it was the best choice for them, and he would slowly divide them. A few days later, even though Qin had sent out many letters, not a single city lord had surrendered, making Zhao Fu feel quite disappointed. Within the meeting hall, Sun Hanxiang said, "Your Majesty, I believe that they've been hesitating this entire time. After all, submitting to a faction and handing over their lives and cities to someone else isn't an easy matter. Why don't we open the city gates and welcome them into Qin? We'll let them see what Qin really is like. That will be many times more effective than persuading them to surrender, and it'll be much more convincing. Right now, everything outside the Great Wall is in chaos, and they'll have to deal with all sorts of dangers. Under such immense pressure, I'm sure many people will choose to join Qin." Wei Liao thought about it and felt quite hesitant before cupping his hands and saying, "Your Majesty, this subordinate feels that we should consider this matter. If we allow them to come to Qin, Qin's strength and arrangements will be completely exposed, and Qin's strength will be revealed. If they don't choose to surrender and instead choose to gather a larger force to attack Qin, they'll find out about Qin's arrangements, and Qin will fall into a disadvantageous situation. This subordinate feels that we should continue to sign contracts with them and use close-in tactics to split them apart and defeat them one by one. Zhao Fu sat on the throne and thought to himself. Sun Hanxiang's method was filled with confidence and domineeringness, and the benefit was that it didn't require a single soldier to obtain system main cities and their people. Wei Liao's method was more cautious and cautious, but it was a good method. However, it would take a lot of time, as no one would believe you in a short period of time. Only after interacting with you for a long time would people start to believe you. What do you all think? Zhao Fu looked at the crowd below. At that moment, Bai Qi cupped his hands and stepped forward, saying, "Your Majesty, I believe that once we've digested these 10 regions, we'll gather our forces, find a direction, and kill our way to the end. No faction will be able to react in time and will be destroyed. When the time comes, Qin will have a greater strength, and it shouldn't be a problem for him to turn around and destroy the other 2 forces. His domineering killing will make them surrender." At that moment, Bai Qi also proposed a strategy, which Zhao Fu felt was quite good. It was very fast, but it would consume a lot of resources. Moreover, Qin City would have no soldiers, and the other 2 factions might suddenly attack. However, with the huge population of Qin, it wouldn't be a problem to defend the Great Wall. However, there would be a lot of deaths, and the whole of Qin would be under a lot of pressure. Li Si also stepped forward and voiced his thoughts. "Your Highness, right now, all of the system main cities are under a lot of pressure, and they understand how difficult the future will be. You can marry some of the city lord's relatives, and with this relationship, they will naturally trust Qin and join Qin City. You can also choose some women from Qin City and give them to the city lords. By using this relationship, you will be able to gain their trust." After hearing this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but glare at him. Even though this was a good idea, Qin City wasn't so weak as to use women to solve the problem. Chapter 695. Zhao Fu was thinking about which method to use, unable to make a decision for a long time. At that moment, Guo Binglin walked in with a solemn expression and reported the information he had suddenly received. A long-lasting conflict finally broke out. The news that Guo Binglin received was that the system factions had started to act against players. The power-restricting system main cities had disappeared, and system main cities could now act against players without fear. Before, the system main cities had been on guard against players retaliating in the future, so they had always been wary of players. Some people even hated players, and the players were quite displeased with how arrogant and domineering the system main cities were. There had always been conflict between the 2 sides, but due to some sort of restriction, the system main cities could not make a move against the players. Even though the players were quite displeased with the system main cities, it was better than having nowhere to go. As such, they could only endure it. After all, the system main cities were neutral, and there was nothing they could do about it. But now, the thing that had been suppressed for so long had finally erupted. The result was, of course, a scene of blood and corpses littered the ground. The information he had obtained in the Heaven-Awakened world was not complete, so Zhao Fu quickly returned to the real world and ordered people to gather all of the information. This was a big matter, and there were already signs of the chaotic world. It would not be long before it was fully unleashed. Sitting on the sofa, Zhao Fu carefully read the information Mu Gillen handed over. One of Long Hanging City's generals asked solemnly, "City Lord, did he really have to do this? This is a little too cruel and bloody." The gloomy young man coldly snorted. "What else can I do? I've long been sick of this group of snobbish mutants, causing a foul atmosphere in my city. Now that the power restraining us has disappeared, of course I have to kill them all. I can't let them become stronger and then attack my city." The battle general still wanted to persuade him, but he was flatly rejected. He had no choice but to carry out the order. Time Suspension City announcement. Time Suspension City will be holding a food event. There is no limit to the number of people or age, and there is no cost. As long as you can eat a big bowl of porridge, You will be rewarded with a silver coin. There were not many players in Longhang City, only around 100,000. Initially, when they heard about this, they did not believe it. After all, there was no fee, and they were rewarded with a silver coin just for eating porridge. Most people would not believe such a good thing. However, after receiving confirmation from the government, everyone understood that there really was such a good thing. As such, countless people hurried over. To ordinary people, a silver coin was a large amount of money. So many people were tempted. However, some people felt that something was off. Why did Long Suspension City suddenly treat them so well? There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. They felt that there was something off and did not go over. However, most people still coveted the rewards. After all, they had never heard of system main cities harming players, so they were quite at ease. The food event was very lively. Countless players waited excitedly, hoping that the event would start soon. Some people couldn't wait any longer and urged loudly, "Hurry up! I can't wait. After the event, I still have to go to the wilderness." That's right. In order to participate in the event, I didn't even have breakfast this morning. I'm starving. Can you hurry up? I'm waiting to get my money. The general, standing on the tall building, looked down at the people below with a trace of pity as he sighed and said, "Carry out the order." Following this, the soldiers brought out bowls of porridge. This porridge wasn't plain porridge, but had many ingredients added to it. It smelled incredibly fragrant and made everyone's appetite increase. Many people couldn't wait any longer and started to eat. Some people didn't have enough and went to get another bowl. Suddenly, a person who had been eating porridge coughed up a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His face twitched in pain a few times before he stopped moving. This sudden turn of events gave everyone a big fright. Following this, the players all coughed up blood and fell to the ground. Only now did the players realize that the porridge had been poisoned. However, it was already too late. Those who had eaten the porridge had been poisoned to death, and corpses littered the ground, looking quite wretched. Some of the players who had sensed that something was off were incredibly shocked when they saw this scene. They had never thought that a system main city would slaughter players, and they didn't dare to stay here. They hurriedly packed their things and prepared to run. However, they were stopped by the system main city soldiers, and just as the players wanted to say something, the system main city soldiers attacked and started to kill the players. Out of the 100,000 players, less than 2,000 of them managed to escape. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Longhang City Lord gave a pleased smile. He had finally done what he had wanted to do for a long time, and he ordered his people to take everything of value and feed the corpses to wild beasts. Longhang City Lord sat on a chair and discussed with his people before a savage look appeared on his face as he said, "Carry out the order. Announcement. Otherworlders, please gather at the eastern side of the city. The city has issued an important quest, and anyone who goes will receive a reward of 100 gold coins." After hearing this announcement, many people felt incredibly delighted. 100 gold coins was equivalent to 1 million gold coins in the real world, and many people would never see such a massive amount of wealth in their entire lives. Hearing that there would be a reward of 100 gold coins, countless people couldn't help but feel greedy and swarmed over. However, some people felt that something was off, and some of the smarter people started to prepare things to escape. There were 150,000 players in Longhang City, and 110,000 of them went to a building that had been constructed. This building was circular and had walls that were 10 or so meters tall. This building had been constructed for quite some time, but the players didn't know what it was for. Following this, the players entered and immediately felt that something was off. After all, there was only a single door, and if they closed the door, they would be trapped here. However, it was too late. The archers had long since been prepared, and they started to shoot arrows, killing the players. Most of the players were caught off guard and died, and some people begged for mercy, but it was completely useless. Now, they knew what this building was for. It was to slaughter them. In the end, all 110,000 players were killed, and their blood dyed the ground red. Corpses littered the ground, and their bodies were covered with arrows. Before they died, Their faces were filled with terror, and they looked incredibly wretched. Luckily, the remaining 40,000 players had long since sensed that something was off and had escaped from Longhang City's massacre. Firebird City announcement. Otherworlders, please head to the Firelands. The City Lord has personally issued a quest, and those who go will not only receive all sorts of rewards, but they will also have a chance to be valued by the City Lord and receive different positions. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.